Coming Down is proudly sponsored by Colorado Ganja Gear, high-quality, artistically inspired herb grinders. So let me tell you, these things are great. I actually own one. My favorite part is the perfect consistency you get after grinding. Some grinders just pulverize your herb into dust, but the razor-sharp teeth and smooth action on these always leave you with perfect, fluffy, evenly ground herb. The craftsmanship is top-notch, made from aircraft-grade aluminum to guarantee you won't get metal shavings mixed into your herb. But the best part, truly, is each grinder features original artwork created by Colorado artist Lori Beatty. She creates unique mandalas that are laser-etched into each magnetic lid. And each grinder comes in a silk bag and has free shipping. So just go to etsy.com/shop/Colorado Ganja Gear and enter the code Coming Down in all caps for $5 off, or go to the show notes for this episode and follow the link. Thanks and enjoy the episode. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Coming Down. My name is Nathan. I'm here with Matthew.
Well, hello there.
So, man, what are you doing on September 20th?
Telling lies to people.
Oh yeah, you actually have plans. So you will not be joining me for the Storm the Area 51 raid.
Wait, what day is this?
September 20th.
Oh, I don't know what I'm doing then.
Because, yeah, have you heard about this thing?
Dude, so I don't care what the truth is. All I know is that the memes that are coming out of this are like high grade. Like,
so gold.
Like just premium quality content.
Yeah, and the fact that the Air Force has actually responded and like the federal government has actually responded,
and the message is pretty much shoot to kill.
The message is, we strongly suggest people don't do this.
Yeah, we will murder you.
Even though I don't think anyone is suggesting that they are going to do this.
Oh no! I mean, there's a ton of shit posters who are like saying that they're going to do it.
Yeah,
but I mean, no one's actually suggesting that they're literally going to storm Naruto style Area 51.
No, the guy who started the event literally said he has no intention of doing this.
Right.
But the event has like over 1 million people, and even like some celebrities have been tweeting about it. Like Keanu was like, Area 51, let's do this.
I mean, it's kind of turning people who ordinarily are not internet trolls into trolls.
Yeah, it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
I just love that this thing has gotten so much traction. Like, in the internet age when things are just mostly awful and vile, I love when something just really charming and like product of its time happens.
Absolutely. I mean, this is kind of like this is the level of self-awareness that I kind of expected from the internet a while ago. Yeah. So seeing it actually happen is nice.
Yeah, and we get this stuff once in a while. Like, what was the Kickstarter? The potato salad Kickstarter guy that had raised like $1 million to make a potato salad, and everyone was, and then it, divided the internet. There were people who thought it was hilarious and people who thought it was awful, and like,
I missed this.
Did you? Oh my gosh, yeah. So some dude just started a Kickstarter to make a potato salad. And he was like, I'm trying to raise $1 million because I want to make the best potato salad ever. And it went viral. And then all these people were like chipping in. And he actually, I don't remember. Maybe I'll show notes it. But I think he raised several $1 million. And a bunch of people got really shitty about it. And they're like, oh, great. Everyone's just going to donate to this guy making a joke while there's people in need and all this stuff. And then it's like, and then, a bunch of other people were like, dude, it's hilarious. Like, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I don't have any like intense feelings one way or the other on that. Like, I think it's cute and silly.
I thought it was funny. I mean, I guess there's a world where it is a shame that people felt compelled to like donate to this guy and not a better cause, but also
my hope would be that this gentleman would also donate some of his funds.
Well, right. So the happy ending to the story is he raised all this money, and then he ended up doing like a big charity event where they ended up making like a shit ton of potato salad to like feed homeless, and like and donated the rest of the money and like did the right thing with it.
Good.
So yeah, happy ending to the story. But yeah, it was just like, but that was another one of those things that I just thought was so funny. I was like, wow, like what a product of our time.
Yeah, man. I really want you to read a good old-fashioned future by Bruce Sterling one of these days, because it has a very short story about a future internet gift economy where like AI just kind of tells people when to like do a thing for someone because they need a favor, and like just people just randomly do these acts, and it like helps someone else that they never met, and they don't know that they need help. Like, it's just like, buy this book, and while you're on your way to the barber shop, leave it on this bench, and then like somebody finds that book and they're like, oh shit, like this book. But then somebody's trying to shut down this fucking AI, and this FBI agent's life becomes this terrifying mess because someone accidentally spills the cologne that she's allergic to into the ventilator of the building that she's in.
And it starts like telling them to do all sorts of weird things.
Yeah, and it's just, but I love the gift economy side of it, where it's like there's just an AI that's trying to benefit everyone by like taking the smallest amount of resources and just like very slowly snowballing that into like really good shit for everyone through random acts of kindness.
Yeah, that's so cool.
That's such a great purpose for technology,
Yeah, and that was even kind of like, I mean, obviously, like, that's a sci-fi version of just, like, the whole pay it forward, like, movement thing that kind of happened surrounding the movie and everything, so.
Right, but here you've got this neural network that's just studying everyone's needs and habits, and, like, it knows when your path is going to cross with someone who, like, needs something that you have that you don't give a shit about or whatever, like, it's just... I love that because it takes all of the onus off of us on marshaling our resources and takes something that can find all of these tiny niches and fill them in.
Well, and this even kind of gets into a cooler concept, and I don't know if the book dives into it, but yeah, resource management, which is something that at least the American government is fucking impossibly bad at.
I don't know, our defense budget is a fucking hogwash.
Yeah, so. And I mean, at every level, at local and federal, local, state, federal level, our government just so poorly manages the resources, and so it'd be really cool to see, an AI algorithm be like, oh no, this is how this is how it actually should work.
Oh, weird! We've got billions of dollars aimed at education and fucking social services. Oh, weird. Yeah, I wonder why we're not spending tons of money on defense. Well, maybe this AI thinks that we actually need to help each other. That's fucking bizarre.
Yeah, totally. So I'd be all for that. Yeah, if we could come up with a system that really knew how to tell us to manage those resources, I am so for that.
Well, and even just on this tiny micro level, just
because then you really actually
working its way up from the tiniest stuff would eventually extrapolate into oh yeah, here's this budget, here's these needs. We can totally fucking meet all of these needs with a fraction of that budget, and they won't even notice it being gone.
Well, then you would actually get true functional socialism. So yeah, right on. Support it.
Dude, we figured it out.
Yep, we just got to build that AI, dude.
Cool.
Coders, hit us up.
Pied Piper, what's your deal?
Matt, you code. Hit us up.
Right. Let's get this gift economy off the ground.
Hell yeah. Dude, I'm all for it, man. What if we could even start a smaller... there's got to be someone who even has started a gifting app.
Oh,
just people sign up for certain things and interests, and it just pairs you with other people and says hey, here's a thing. Actually...
Absolutely.
Now I'm trying to remember if this is a real app or if this was some fantasy dream that I had with a friend once where we talked about a bucket list app. See, not someone tell me if this is real or not, and if it's not real, let's make it. But it was effectively you plug in all your stuff into a bucket list, and then it sets up an algorithm to pair you with other people who can help you achieve those, right? So if it's I've always wanted to travel to Austria and do XYZ, well, then the little spiders work their way, find someone else who's programmed into the app, find someone in Austria who's hey, you can stay at my house, or I can show you around, or I've got these resources for you.
I would imagine that if that doesn't exist, that there's a suite of apps that could mimic that behavior.
Yeah, totally. God,
I mean, Craigslist used to be kind of like that.
Dear listener, I wish I could discern reality from non-reality sometimes.
Oh, dude. I have so many dreams that I think are memories. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. So this may or may not be real. Oh, that's terrible. But yeah, this may or may not be real, but that's kind of getting close to...
No, I love it.
Know,
yeah.
What that book is about.
Yeah, well, I mean, fuck, dude. I had a buddy named Tom the German who... yeah, that was his name on the internet. And he just would take a break from his job because in Germany, at least at the time, and I imagine it's still somewhat similar, you could go on the dole for up to a year and a half. Like, you know, if you quit your job, they would just support you for a while you either reconfigured or got your feet back under you or whatever. Tom would just fucking travel. And he would try to stay with people as much as he could because it was a lot cheaper. Mm-hmm. And he's a world-class chef. So he would just say, you know, you don't have to cook dinner the whole time I'm staying with you.
There you go.
Like, and I'll even try to like make some snacks and like whatever in between, like maybe some breakfast here and there, but like guaranteed every night you're gonna have a 4-star chef cook dinner.
Oh man.
And I mean, like, that's a pretty great trade for like crashing on the couch. Like, who gives a shit, right? Like,
that is great.
He'd buy the groceries too, you know. It's not like you had to foot the bill.
But then you're staying at a place for the cost of groceries. Yeah. You know, for the cost of an evening of groceries in your time.
Yeah, so. for a meal that he would want to cook anyway, and he just had to make for a couple extra people. So, I mean, like, it's such a great trade-off for everybody. And he would, in his travels, you know, he's just a really personable guy, so he'd get to know people. He'd get their email address. He'd say, you know, let's stay in touch. If you come to Germany, come stay with me. You know, if they were travelers from another country, he'd say, you know, can I come stay with you if I go to your country? And he just developed this network of people around the globe he could come stay with. And he would go back to Germany after a year and a half of traveling. He'd work for like the minimum amount of time that you had to work to go back on the dole and just fucking do it all over again. You know, and that was his 20s and probably at least his early 30s. I haven't talked to him in a while, but like...
I mean, that is some next level. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
What a great way to spend your time and live your life.
And I mean, like, socialism did that for him, you know?
Right, right. Well, you know, and I love this share economy that's emerging, you know, between... you know, ride shares, obviously, like your big example, but I've seen many others where, like, there's people who come and pick up your laundry and, like, go and take it and bring it back to you and stuff. I just like the idea that everyone has something to offer and people aren't being utilized for their best offerings.
No doubt. Well, and also, something that has not yet emerged but is kind of on the cusp right now is what I would call, like... net reputation, like for like a lot of these cloud-based services, you know, like they want to vet you first or whatever, and like there isn't like a reputation token that's like transferable between all of these places. I'm sure they're like checking references and shit, right? I hope they are, at least for fucking Lyft and shit like that.
Yeah,
but you know, I'm just saying, like, you know, if you are respected in your area of the network, then like that gains you some credence and some clout depending on what you're fucking trying to do, you know, at least in some of these fictional future economies, you know.
Right. See, and that would be cool, and it's like the downside is we're already seeing that with like influencers and like people who don't actually do anything.
Right. Well, and that is starting to, like, there's a backlash that's happening now.
Yes, of course.
On that shit. And so that's why I'm saying we're on the cusp of having these actual, like, fucking reputation tokens where it's like, no, we've got a list of all the fucking bad shit that this person did and like all the fake bullshit. Like, don't trust what this fucking person's saying, you know? And then on the other side, there's like, this person is completely transparent about everything that they're doing, and like they're doing some cool shit. Come check them out. You know?
And in the day and age of where we don't really, you know, where privacy is almost lost, you know, it's like, might as well just put it all out on Front Street and, you know, your resume of your life and who you are as a person is just kind of out there for people, and then you can utilize that however you want. You
Absolutely.
know? Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of its own power in a way. Where,
for sure.
You know, you don't have any privacy anyway, so you might as well be completely open about.
Well, it's super good that that's happening because we are absolutely just losing privacy. You can protect yourself all you want with your VPNs and your security lockdowns and everything, and you should.
Absolutely.
However, it's just there just won't be privacy at a certain point.
Well, it's going to become it will reach a point at which you will have an information stream that you will be editing.
Right.
Everyone will have a stream of completely public information that you will cherry pick.
Yeah.
As best you can, and this is part of the book that I'm reading too, is some rich people have personal editors who are actual human beings who are editing all of their streams and making sure that certain details aren't published and whatever.
Yep.
Whereas people who aren't as wealthy just have AI that does that for them.
Right. Yeah. I met a dude 8 or 9 years ago, and this dude's full-time job was internet scrubber. Yeah. And so he would get hired by a publicist who would say okay, spend the next week just pulling anything negative about this person that you can find, anything at all, and find ways to fuck up the Google algorithms to make sure that this stuff gets buried, or contact who you have to contact to get it pulled, get it taken down. Whoa, what a weird job.
Well, and I imagine back then Google bombing was easier because they didn't have neural networks and shit that.
Yeah, for sure. Hell yeah. Well, there you go. There's some positive sci-fi talk. See, I love it. And I am such a positive person when it comes to AI. I'm not one of those doom and gloom sort of people. Oh God, no. And
technology is a two-edged sword, and for the most part, we're trying to get the best out of it. You know?
For sure. And I mean, I guess Skynet's a possibility, but I find it less likely than utilizing it for something more positive. So.
Absolutely.
But yeah, well, we won't go too long because this is a long episode.
Holy shit! I mean, in many ways.
Yeah. So I'll just give a little brief rundown. As you were telling your whole history, your big becoming a person story, the 3-parter, sort of got me thinking of well, shit, what is my episode 1? What is my first movie?
What's your Iron Man?
Yeah, totally. And I was able to pin it down that it all took place over the course of this one summer.
Dude, and I think you're right. Having heard this, absolutely, this was totally the formation of Nathan.
Yep, for sure. And so I sat down with it and was able to sort of craft a narrative and put it in. I think a timeline that is correct, but I'm not positive about that because it was 20-some years ago.
It's at the very least, it's coherent.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So this is just part 1 of that, and I don't have too much to say on it that doesn't really get said and brought up in the episode, but I will take one more opportunity to apologize to my mother. Mom, as you hear this episode, and the 2 that follow it, or 1 or 2, we'll see how long they end up being, there are, I guess the only way to put this, the only thing I regret from this time period in my life is the lies and deceit that I performed to pull off this stuff with living in my mom's house, because I was 16 years old during all this story. So, and I feel bad about that because I'm really close with my mom, and I know that she only just ever wanted to be a good parent, as most parents do, and their kids fucking sneak out and sneak around them and do all the shit behind their back.
Yeah, and I mean,
and that's every story. That's exactly. Every kid and every parent and every
I'm sure she understands.
I hope she does, because just know that I do feel bad about that, and I do genuinely apologize, and you're going to hear a lot of stuff that you may not know the whole story.
Right. Also, parents out there, your kids still love you even if they're sneaking around behind you.
Yep, totally.
That's just normal teenager shit.
Yep. And kids out there, God, I hope there's not too many kids listening.
Holy shit! Turn this off if you're under 18.
No, kids out there, your parents love you, even if they're kind of putting the hammer down and things are getting tense and weird. So, it'll all work out in the end for most folks.
True. Also, if you're under 18, turn this off.
Anyhow, if you're over 18 and you'd like to hit us up, follow us on Twitter at comingdownpod. You can you can send us an email, comingdownpod@gmail.com. It's the best way to get a hold of us. We'd love to hear from you. Also, if you'd like to be on the show, that's the best way to do it. Check out our website, comingdownpod.com. That's going to have all the show notes and any relevant links to anywhere else. For instance, all the platforms that exist out there that you already know how that works because you're listening to it right now on one of them. Feel free to drop us a rate and review on Stitcher. We would definitely love you for that. Oh, and if you really, really like us, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/comingdownpod. We've got a few different tiers and some merch to go along with that, and bonus episodes, of which the 4th bonus episode is out and live as of right now. So definitely go in and check that out if you haven't yet. And boy, I think that's it. I say let's go.
Crazy is people who use emojis regularly in their texts get laid more than people who don't.
Fucking really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because it's a new, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It's like, yeah, you could simplify it and say like, oh, we're just reverting back to hieroglyphs and like communication like is losing its touch, but also like it's just language changing and evolving.
I say that it's a new form of not new form, but it's an added form of context, and it's all they're all symbols, so it's essentially a new alphabet.
Yeah,
that's an emotional alphabet.
Yeah, totally.
And I mean, honestly, for text, it's kind of required for some contexts. No one understands sarcasm. Unless you make it clear that you're being sarcastic.
Right.
And there's some sentences that can be taken completely differently, whether you're mad, happy, or sad, and
right.
So adding a little fucking smiley face.
Right, or winky faces or whatever.
It helps.
My emoji game is weak. I've got like, winky face, like laughy face, cry face,
I am only slightly past using emojis and emoticons ironically. So
right.
I pretty much have a toddler's sophistication with emojis at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, like emoji code, we're barely there.
Yeah, my reaction GIF game is fairly strong, but and that's a whole different level of communication. Just pulling snippets of pop culture to respond to things and convey certain things.
Dude, I used to have my images folder. Like, I had all of it. Like I had stuff for forum threads and flame wars and...
Yeah.
I'm really glad that I'm not that person anymore, to be perfectly honest.
It's certainly... It takes effort,
Yeah,
like you say, you got to have your folders, you got to be ready to fire those things off.
I'm not an internet dweller anymore. I don't live
right
on a message board like I used to.
But in an effort to not be an old man, I want to be able to like communicate like the kids do.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Like, you want to be able to be fluent in the language of your era. That's you don't want to be irrelevant. That's right. That's totally valid. And I feel like that's part of the advantage that our generation, and to some extent the previous generation, had as well, is just that we're pretty good at being chameleonic and like picking up on new shit and understanding memes. I'm not saying it's perfect. I mean, both of us have sat here and been old men about plenty of internet shit that we don't understand,
Right.
But for the most part, especially stuff that's just like out there in the zeitgeist, like I feel like we are a lot more adept at picking up on that than potentially previous generations were, especially
for sure
our parents'
and it's up to the person. I mean, I think some people, our parents' age, made an effort to keep their finger on the pulse, and some sort of let it fall behind them. And yeah, I'm making every effort to keep my finger on the pulse, and I feel like I'm just falling behind constantly, you know?
Well, that's also part of a product of being in the information age, you know?
Yeah, totally. It's a product, too, of just, I am actually getting older. I don't communicate all the time. I don't go out to parties all the time. I don't hang out, you know? It's like...
Sure, but I would also argue that a part of it is just that your focus has become that refined. You know, we're no longer trolling the front page of... fucking break.com or fucking, that's a bad example because that totally devolved into a bullshit fucking
but at its height it was a thing that was relevant,
right? It was culturally relevant at some point, you know. Like you fucking can even be argued that like E-Bombs World and some of that other shit,
well, I was gonna say too, that's where you know, what were those like early viral videos, the like the end of the world and stuff. It's like
albino black sheep,
albino black sheep, those were all featured on those sites, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, so I mean, you know, like I feel like back then things were a lot more focused. Like there was only a certain amount of places that you could go to find things, you know? Right. Whereas these days, good luck, man. Like there's Reddit. Sure, you know, that's the hub for the internet, basically.
God, it took me like 2 years to even understand how Reddit worked.
Oh, I'm not even gonna fucking...
Now I'm a Reddit fan, though.
I'm not going to be honest about how long it's taken me. But yeah, I mean, Reddit is obviously the hub, but like, that's like saying fucking Google is the hub. Like, you know, I mean, it's a central point, certainly, but it has so many sub-factions that, you know, it's like the fucking crystallization of the internet at any given moment, you know?
Right.
Like, it's all fucking tons of shit. So, I mean, saying that you're behind the curve, sure, maybe, but also, like, you haven't slowed down your intake of new information.
No.
It's just that you've focused it. You've streamlined it down to shit that matters to you.
Right.
And there's a profusion of outlets for you to gain information from that is only pertinent to you, you know? So, I would say that it's more of a product of the balkanization of the internet, you know? Like,
oh, yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. I mean, yeah, because the expansion rate of information on the internet is just, you know, I mean, I think it is exponential if you want to talk Moore's Law. That's one thing that's just, it's doubling by the second almost.
It might be faster than exponential. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's up there, you know?
Yeah, it is just, it's hard to keep up with all of it because it just moves so quickly.
Yeah.
And the way people process information. We're going to have to get faster at it because, like, I just don't even have time to read articles, you know? And, like...
No one does.
Yeah. And it's like, and I don't want to be a headline skimmer, and that's where people fucking get into trouble, you know? Because then you read a thing and then have to find out later, like, ah, shit, well, I got bamboozled.
Right.
You know?
I honestly, and this, you know, this might be controversial, but I honestly don't think that the answer is widening the stream. Like,
oh, hell no.
I don't think that anyone's capable of actually intaking enough relevant information to be up to date on everything. Like,
no, it's impossible.
There's just too much stuff that's being reported on now. So, and like, I'm not saying that my approach to this is necessarily correct, but man, like, fuck anything that is gonna set you back, you know? Like, don't fucking waste your time on shit that's like self-defeating, you know?
Well, and I've been saying this for a while regarding media consumption. It's like a new skill that everyone has to develop is reading between the lines.
Yes.
Like you need to be able to look at something and very quickly assess the biases that are going on, where it's coming from, how it's being reported, and then make a very quick determination on if it's worth your time to keep pursuing that article or that reporting.
Right.
And if you can do that on the fly, then you can just say no to things very quickly, Google the relevant terms, and find the correct information you want regarding a story. This is a crazy skill that a lot of people do not have.
It's research pure and simple, you know?
It is, but it's research that you really have to do on the fly, because if you can't, you're just spending so much time. You're wasting so much time.
Right.
I need to be able to look at something, look at the source that it's from, understand what that means, read how it's being reported, and then immediately say, okay, this is probably bullshit. I need to cross-reference this
right.
immediately. You know, and then that takes extra time, and then those cross references I also need to kind of make those quick determinations before I dive into the article and say, okay, this is information that I actually want to retain, that I actually accept as truth.
Right. And do you know what skill set that is?
And that is
that's journalism.
Yeah,
that's every single journalist out there who reads a story. They make a call. You know, they say, well, wait a fucking second.
Right.
And then they go and they look at other sources of information that they know, and they say, well, are they reporting on this? And what's their take on it?
Right.
You know, and if no one else is fucking reporting on it, and you think that it sounds like bullshit, maybe wait a minute and see if anybody else has something to say. But, you know, but like...
That's not really what they do anymore. Right?
Oh, I'm saying real journalists.
Yeah.
and I mean they're getting fewer and further between. But what's his bucket? The guy who always puts his fucking glasses in the mouth, who was on the nightly news. Anyway, he recently retired and he was on Colbert, and he was just like, yeah, this is what everyone needs to be fucking doing. You know, like any good journalist doesn't just read a story and go, huh, well that's crazy. Never knew that was true. You go, hold the fuck on.
Right.
And then you go and you check the sources and you look at other information streams and you determine whether or not that holds water, you know? And like, that's just what they do. And I mean, that's also what you and I have developed.
Right.
Through fucking blind trial and error, you know? But like...
Right. But see, and this is like, you know, and this is the crazy thing. And this is why it's just, to me, because I realize that this skill is crucial, I also realize how hard it is and how much I've worked on developing that skill. And the reason that I've done that is because I've always questioned things because of, as we've talked about, like, you know, maybe some psychedelic usage contributed to like questioning our reality and questioning our government. And that led us to reading about the people who question our government and question how things are run. I can totally understand that there's a giant population of people who don't do that. Or how could some people even have time? You know? How does the single mom of 5 have time to sit and vet articles all day just to try and get correct information?
Yeah.
How?
No, that's real. And I mean, I won't lie, like, for an embarrassingly long period of time, I won't admit how long, I completely stopped paying attention to the news because I was so depressed.
Well, you're not wrong.
And I was like, okay, I'm either gonna fucking kill myself or I'm going to stop paying attention to this bullshit because it's making me want to kill myself. Fuck, I can't think about how doomed the world is right now because it's just too fucking much, you know? And so I kind of did this self-imposed media blackout for an extended period of time, and I definitely missed out on a lot of fucking school shootings and like other shit that was relevant, you know, like current events kind of news that, you know, people are like, Jesus, dude, you don't fucking know about that? And I'm like, no, I don't, but I'm also still here, so, you know, like, mission accomplished.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you, and I think a lot of people did that, and it was easy to do. Try not go too down the political rabbit hole here, but it was easy to do when we had Obama because it was easy to be complacent. It was like, cool, we got a guy who's fine, like, you know, love him, don't love him, kind of love him, whatever. It wasn't the dumpster fire we're in right now.
Oh, God, right.
So it was easy to say, like, okay, yeah, trying to pay attention to the media right now is so time-consuming and so stressful that, like, I'm just actually not gonna, because things are okay.
Right.
Like, the fucking country isn't on fire, the world's kind of on fire, but, you know, I guess I can't help thousands of miles away from me. Whatever your reasoning is, it was easy to do that. We're all in a position right now where it's like, no, we gotta, like, we have to pay attention and participate to some level because shit's getting gnarly. Yeah. And, you know, again, this isn't political cast, so I won't go too deep down that, but, like, Jesus, man, like, there are some seriously dangerous ideals floating around right now, and some seriously dangerous people making decisions for people.
It feels like we're approaching a nexus point, and
it does.
Don't feel like it's going to be good for anyone.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I feel pessimistic or optimistic right now. I'm just sort of trying to get through it all, but while paying attention instead of not.
Well, right. And, thankfully, one of the things that I learned from my self-imposed media blackout is that I can expose myself to current events and political news as long as I've got someone digesting it for me in an amusing format.
I mean, no, seriously, Daily Show and John Oliver and stuff have done a lot to deliver me information that doesn't make me... Yeah,
Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert,
totally.
I'm not saying that it should be your only informational input, but if you just can't fucking hack it, but you need to know what's going on, you could do a lot worse.
And you could, and it's not a bad leaping off point to say, okay, well,
right,
through this jokey manner, they pointed a thing out to me that's a serious problem, so I can research it more. I can participate in fighting against this. I can do what I'm going to do to make an effort in the world. But I've definitely reached a point where I need to make an effort in this world more. And actually, I was going to talk to you about doing some sort of charity something soon, because this abortion bill shit is fucking terrifying. And I'm really optimistic about it all, because the slow churn of government is a feature, not a bug sometimes. And in this particular case, it's going to very much be a feature, because it's going to take a while for the ACLU to sue all of these states, and for all these bills to walk through all these different courts. And, Ohio's already shot one down. And
exactly. I mean, it's a matter of time. But, it's making me realize that we actually need boots on the ground trying to give the Supreme Court term limits.
Yep.
Trying to overturn Glass-Steagall.
Yep.
Trying to overturn Citizens United.
Yep.
There needs to be some fucking movement. And
absolutely.
I've realized that despite my notions of fucking dying young, I'm still fucking here. And if my life expectancy is anything like previous generations, shit, man, I might be staring down the fucking next, I might only be halfway done right now, maybe even less than that. And so
and even if you weren't, man, there's no reason to not make it good for the people here right now too.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
but I mean, instead of just fucking spinning my wheels and waiting to die a young death, at this point I need to start fucking figuring it out, because I'm here and I'm not going anywhere apparently. So
totally. And and you care about people around you.
Damn straight. And I want to fucking see this shit change, man.
I do too. And I want to protect the people around me, and seeing the way that people apparently still want to treat women, it's just really fucked up, man.
Fuck, man.
But again, we'll not go down too deep of that, because we could just turn this into just this rage cast, and that's not what we're here for.
No, but coming soon, two old men get mad about nothing.
No, get mad about something.
I'm sorry, two old men get mad about everything.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's our new kind of pilot program, that one.
We're just going to sit here and bitch about everything that grinds our gears.
Yeah, but maybe we could raise some money. So maybe after this cast, we'll talk about a fundraiser thing that we could do. I'd be into doing that.
Hell yeah.
So sometimes segues are perfect, and sometimes you can just be like, well...
We bullshit long enough.
Remember the good old days? Remember when this wasn't the case?
Oh, God, right.
Remember when we were young, dumb, and fucking didn't have any political concerns, and were too stupid to realize that we should anyway?
Oh, God.
That I didn't realize that, the women around me were being oppressed by our politicians. Anyway.
Yeah, back when we didn't know there was such a thing as white privilege, and we just thought that we were broke kids who...
Yep. Yeah, who had the whole future ahead of us.
Yep, the world is our ashtray with a pearl in it.
Yep. God, maybe that's what this episode will be called. Ashtray with a pearl in it. So you got me thinking, by the time the listeners are hearing this, they'll have heard your origin story, which I'm just going to keep calling it that. I don't know what we'll actually call it, but
I love it.
Yeah, but when you told it to me, I was like, holy shit, man, like, that was it. Those were your formative.
It was a crucible
years, you know.
Sure.
And for you, it was like a kind of a 2 year and change jaunt that you did a ton of stuff. And then so it really got me thinking. I was like, what's my origin story? You know, if I'm a Marvel movie, like what's the first movie? You know,
right? When did you find your fucking costume?
Yeah, because certainly my sequels are fucking boring, just like Iron Man 2 and 3. You know? But my first one was probably sweet, dude. And so it got me thinking. It was like, oh shit, no, I do have one. So like you went hard. And you went pretty hard for like 2 years.
Yeah.
But then it occurred to me, I went hard, but for like a summer.
Hey, man.
And much like everything in our parallels, like, you know, my rave thing was like 2 weeks. But I went pretty hard, you know? Or like a month or whatever it was.
Dude, I mean, like, you just figured out things faster than I did.
I don't know if it's that. I think I stopped earlier, though. I think I just, like, did it and, like, pumped the brakes a little earlier than you did, which... I don't know. I'm not saying one's right or wrong or better or worse. You know, like it all shaped who we are.
You know, I just needed to spin the revolving door a few more times.
Dude, why not, right? And maybe if I had the, you know, if myriad things had turned out differently, maybe I end up there. Like, maybe I end up at a rainbow gathering. Maybe I end up out of state.
Fair.
Depends on the people I meet or whatever, too. You know, like your story definitely... hinged a lot around like meeting that girl and meeting like the people she knew and then getting taken to these other places. So
it was all just kind of a crazy serendipity trail, you know.
Yeah, totally. So my story, it was all happened during high school, and basically I won't even tell the whole high school story because that's a whole other podcast. So
once again.
Once again.
We're creating a trunk from which other branches will grow.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll find a way to do this that doesn't impede that story and this kind of has to happen first for that whole story to make sense.
Right. I that's kind of how I felt for the framework of the story that I told, is just that way better to get this out in advance so that everyone knows just kind of the structure of how things go.
Yep.
So they know that how that story fits into all of this shit. You know?
Totally. No, and like you say, yeah, this really is like a trunk at this point. Like we're establishing, we've been telling people like one-offs of where you can just sort of pick them out of anywhere, right. But now we're really getting to the heart of it, you know, and like what grew us as people, and so that's pretty cool.
I mean, we beat around the bush long enough. We had to get to this shit eventually.
Totally. And so it took me a second to kind of figure out how to structure this. So this is kind of how it's going to go. So I'll just kind of start with an overlying thing of I found psychedelics in 10th grade. At the end of 10th grade. And
so you're what, like
so I was 15.
Okay.
Yeah. I had smoked weed the summer between 9th and 10th grade, like once, I think, maybe, or twice, and then got into 10th grade and shit sort of like, then I just met all the stoners and started smoking a bunch of weed. I met this dude Ricky, who was super cool. Like, he showed me a lot with like just getting into weed and stuff, and some psychedelics, and then met Brett and this dude Zach, and so that's kind of where it all begins. Actually, I should maybe even talk about the end of 10th grade, like the middle of 10th grade. I started dating this girl named Amanda. So like just all of my like all the really like formative stuff happened so very fast. But yeah, I met this girl Amanda, who I lost my virginity to, and we got on super well, and we smoked a lot of weed, and she lived with her sister and her boyfriend out here because I guess she had problems at home. Like she was from I I don't know, somewhere, Minnesota or some such. And so yeah, and so she just had like pretty free reign of her place, so I got to come over and like spend the night a lot. And
cool.
Yeah, so got all of my like sexual experience out with her like very rapidly. So that was wild. So then I definitely felt like I was becoming, you know, a grown person.
Right.
I had always been like, I was always smart and like advanced in school, but I always felt a little behind the curve. I never fit in with kids. I was never on the fashion trends. I was never on the trends or whatever. Like in ninth grade, you know, the trend was skater chic, you know, and I finally got my mom to buy me some like Jinkos and stuff. I didn't skate, but I was like, I want to look like these kids. These are the dudes that are getting like pretty girls and stuff. So I started dressing like them, but everyone knew I didn't skate. So it was like, I was a clear poser. I was just like the clearest poser.
God, that was always the fucking most bullshit conceit. It's like, oh, you don't skate, so you can't wear these clothes. It's
so I bought a BMX. I was like, I'm like skater adjacent because I BMX, but I also was terrible. Like all I did was wreck and like nearly fucking kill myself trying to BMX. So gave that up pretty quick after like my third or fourth like gnarly wreck that I somehow didn't break bones. But
damn,
yeah. So I like gave that up anyway. So I felt like always kind of like a step behind, even though I guess I lost my virginity at 15, so I wasn't really a step behind.
I mean, you got me beat.
Yeah, I was doing I smoked weed the first time when I was 14, so it was just like I was kind of actually just doing it all
right
early.
There, yeah.
Yeah, we're like right there or even early compared to a lot of kids, so... But for some reason, I always felt behind, and so I was always
But I mean, like, you came from a pretty low-income family, right? Like...
Yeah, I mean, relatively. You know, end of the day, we're middle class, but my mom definitely always, like, worked her ass off.
Right, but I mean, like, where did you go school shopping?
I mean, Ross.
Exactly.
And stuff. Yeah. My grandma would buy me lots of stuff.
I'm not fucking buying skate clothes at Ross, dude.
Oh, shit, no. Yeah, when I finally got my mom to buy me a fucking pair of Jinkos, you know, and they were like $60.
Exactly.
In the fucking in the late 90s.
Like, that's the thing. These fucking skater idiots are either fucking professional criminals or they're rich kids, you know? Like,
oh, yeah. So, and this is the thing in junior high. So, well, yeah. And so I lived in this neighborhood called Huntington Hills. It sounds prestigious, but it really wasn't. We're sort of this new development way on the edge of town. So it was like affordable middle class housing, but right next to that, there was tons of other new development that was all very, very rich. Like golf courses right near my house and like very, very rich people. And then they built a brand new junior high, and my neighborhood and the Fossil Creek neighborhood and then the I don't even know what the neighborhood was called, but all the streets were named after like astronomy stuff, like constellations and planets and stuff. So it was like the very rich kids, the me, and then those kids were all the really poor kids,
right?
And because they had kind of been there forever, they all went to this new junior high called Preston, and like and they just called it Preston. I went there the first year it opened, so it was all like brand new building, brand new teachers, and it was very like prestigious.
Sure.
Even though, like, it wasn't really, but, like, everyone acted like it because it was new, you know? And it was the new development, and then there were just so many fucking rich kids there. I don't even know why I'm really talking about this that much. This was just to sort of set a stage of how I got out of junior high into high school, I guess.
Sure.
And, yeah, so junior high was probably the worst years of my life ever. I just, again, always felt behind, didn't really have too many friends. I had one friend who, like, only got me in trouble. And so that was hard because, like, I had to sort of, like, not be friends with him because I was just going to keep getting in trouble if I did. And luckily, I had befriended Joe. And, you know, he's been one of my longest best friends. We would, we had a journalism class together in ninth grade, and just this teacher who really didn't give a fuck, and we were both good at writing and doing the assignments, and we spent that entire class just sitting in the back quoting Monty Python, The Holy Grail to each other.
Oh my God.
Like, we'd just come into class, sit down, and he'd be like, You know, what is your favorite color? And then we just do like the whole scene, you know, right. And just like we would just do that, and that's what we enjoyed. But
Brother Maynard, read from the Book of Armaments.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and like, God, there's probably a point in time where we could have just started at the beginning and done the whole movie. So yeah, but so I finally kind of like started getting my feet under me by the end of junior high. And I had made several good friends there, except then the way the division lines worked for the high schools was all weird. So
it was gerrymandered?
Yeah, you know, I mean...
It's certainly that way in Bend.
There's no racist lines in Fort Collins because there's
no, it's income lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it was in Bend. Like, kids on the West Hills went to the brand new high school, even though the kids who went to the old high school lived closer to the new high school.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so that's what it was. So, like, Joe lived down in Fossil Creek. I lived in Huntington Hills. The neighborhoods both directly, like, behind us all went to Fort Collins High School, which they had also just built. So my 9th grade class all went to the very first year of Fort Collins High School for their 10th grade. Joe and I went to Rocky, which was the old school. Or one of. And basically it was just Joe and I went to Rocky, and then all of our friends from junior high all went to Fort Collins. And so we sort of lost touch with a lot of them. And so it was just Joe and I going into high school, which worked out, honestly, because we, you know, grew closer and we're just like, hell yeah, at least we've got each other, man. And like, we just stuck it out and did 10th grade. And then towards the end of 10th grade, so I was still dating that girl, Amanda. And yeah, and we were doing great at the time, having lots of sex. But Joe met this guy, Zach, and in one of his classes, like a speech class or something. And I remember him coming to me the day after school one day, and he was like, dude, I just bought some mushrooms. Like, this guy Zach had mushrooms, and he just, like, yeah, I got to talking to him, and he was like, I had the money, so I just, like, bought us some. And I was like, hell yeah, dude, like, I'm about this. Because we had been talking about it. We smoked weed. We had started smoking quite a bit of weed at that point.
Oh, okay.
You know, like, on lunch breaks and stuff. Like, we'd go and meet up with some kids and smoke.
Again, parallel lines.
Yeah. Well, and we had and I mean, once, like, dude, free campus, like, oh my god, it was fucking mind-blowing, dude. So, Rocky, so they would let kids leave campus. I mean, hell, even between class, you could run off campus if you had the 10 minutes to do it. If you had an off period, you could go off campus, and during lunch, you could go off campus. And we had, like, a full hour for lunch. And so there was a gas station you walked across, like, the football field, and then there was a little gas station in this, like, next to this apartment complex, which I later lived in that apartment complex and have great stories about it. But but yeah, and
put a pin in it.
Yeah, put a pin in that one. And so we would go over there. We would hey Mr. People for cigarettes, and then go down this alleyway and and smoke weed. And that was kind of a lot of what we did in 10th grade. And it was great. Like, we both had a pretty good time in 10th grade. Like, school-wise, we were getting along fine. And then, yeah, 10th grade really wasn't that weird. It was fine. We didn't love high school, but we were getting on fine. And we were figuring ourselves out and meeting some friends. So we get the mushrooms. And so then this was my first trip. So Joe and I, and my friend John was there. My girlfriend was there. Want to say there's one other dude there. Might have been this dude Dave. I couldn't tell you, man. It's been a while. But yeah, we just go to the park. We go to City Park. It's the biggest park in town. And they got a big pond, and it's fucking huge. And we eat the mushrooms. And actually, you know what? I'm wrong, because we ate mushrooms and went to Cherry Pop and Daddy's, but it didn't work.
Wait, what?
I talked about this in the Glenn episode. Actually, I can't remember if I put this in the episode or not, but I talked about this when Glenn was here. I ate like 2 caps, and we went to Cherry Pop and Daddy's, and something happened where...
No, hold on. Before we go too much further, is this pre Zoot Suit Riot?
This
or
was...
post Zoot Suit Riot?
This was like right as Zoot Suit Riot came out, I want to say.
Because they were a completely different band.
Yeah. So people were skanking and they had horns, I'll tell you that much.
But it's not much to go on.
Yeah, but it was a raucous show. It was very raucous. And, I don't remember why.
It was probably post if people were skanking. I'm sorry. Skanking, then it was probably pre.
Yeah, because they were more of a ska band and less of a swing band.
Swing band after Zoot Suit Riot. They were a ska band before Zoot Suit Riot.
It was like right in there though, so they were probably maybe playing some of that new stuff, but the old ska kids still liked them, and I don't remember exactly.
I never saw them after Zoot Suit Riot. I just saw them before. So
it was a great show. I have no idea. I don't remember the circumstances, and I have no idea how my mom knew I was there. But she found out I was there and I was supposed to be somewhere else, and she actually came down there.
Shut your mouth.
And fucking scolded me. She let me. I feel like she let me stay at the show, but was like, "You have to come home directly after this and stuff."
Were you guys on drugs at this show?
So I had taken 2 caps.
Oh god.
And so had Joe. And it didn't work for either of us. If I remember correctly, Joe, you might correct me on this, but I didn't end up tripping at all. And weird. I'm so glad, because if I was... Okay, first of all, tripping balls at a Cherry Poppin' Daddy show would have been weird, I think, for the first time. Especially with what these mushrooms did to me the first time they actually worked.
First time, so I've definitely tripped at a Cherry Poppin' Daddy's show.
I mean, that sounds reasonable now.
We decided that their style of music was ninja disco.
Yeah. It's totally reasonable. No,
or maybe I was just really high. I don't know. Back then, there was times when I'd just get so high that it was psychedelic. So
yeah,
memory does not serve.
Yeah, totally. And and so I got scolded and didn't really get in trouble, but that was kind of the first sign of I got to be way more careful about how I fucking
plan
out
dude.
my evenings.
Get your story straight.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I'm so glad that they didn't work, because I would have just been out of my gourd, dude, and then try to talk to my mom or something. It wouldn't have worked out. So I want to say a couple weeks later, because I think it was the same bag of mushrooms, and I think we even went to Zach and we were like, yeah, we took some of those and they didn't work, and he was like, look, it happens, dude. Try them again, trust me.
Bullshit. What the fuck kind of mushrooms were they that it didn't work?
I've heard people that the first time it doesn't work. I've talked to several people who the first time they've tried LSD, first time they've tried mushrooms, first time they smoked weed even. Yeah. First time I smoked weed, I didn't get... I didn't feel very many effects.
As we have discussed, I did not know that I was high the first time that I smoked weed.
I might have been high the first time I smoked it, but it didn't feel... It didn't feel like anything, but I remember the first time I got high on weed, and it was very noticeable. It was fucking crazy, dude.
I will say that the first time I did mushrooms, I got off, but it was very different from all of the other times that I did mushrooms.
Yeah, and maybe I felt something, but it wasn't... it was nothing like every other time after that, so...
And it was mostly just that, I was, really high, And in fact, I didn't think anything was happening, and then we went off in the bushes and smoked weed. And I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah, so weed is always such a crazy catalyst for tripping, too. In fact, I think I've got a story in here somewhere about that. Well, and actually, even the first time. So then when we went to City Park to trip again, or attempt to trip again, that's what happened. So we ate the mushrooms and sat around. Everyone's kind of like, I don't know. And then we walked over by the tennis courts and we started packing up bowls, and then it was that's when it hit, Yeah. And I'm I have my back to a chain link fence and I'm looking at my girlfriend, and the chain link shadows are cast on her face, and we're getting high, and then the mushrooms just totally hit in. I see her face, where all the chain links were cutting apart, I saw all those chunks of her face moving around. It was just coming apart and stuff. She was a robot or an android. Her face and everything. I was just okay.
Yeah.
So I'll try not to just spend too much of this cast describing visuals, because look, you've either tripped or you haven't, and if you have, you get it, and if you haven't, it's fine. You know, you're going to be bored with this. So
yeah, I mean, like, we're not going to spend too long talking about it, but I also, you know,
sometimes it's relevant.
But I feel like if you see something cool, it's worth mentioning.
Yeah,
you know? Like,
totally.
I saw figures from throughout mythology superimposed over all of my friends.
Yeah,
relevant detail.
Yeah. So this one was particularly interesting because it was, I mean, the first time and the most intense visuals ever. I mean, probably of any of my trips. Maybe there's a couple that compare, but we proceed to. I remember we proceeded to walk over to the pond, and I thought I saw like scaled like backs of like a monster swimming in the pond. Sick. You know, like a Loch Ness monster or something. Yeah, dude. And then this swan like got really aggressive, and we started throwing like coins at it.
So yeah, fuck swans.
Yeah, totally. And so we ran back to the playground. This was probably one of the most distinct visuals that I ever remember. Was we were standing in the playground. We were like, a couple of us were like swinging, and a couple of us were just standing around, just like marveling at all the fucking shit going on. And then all of a sudden, two cops like roll through, because you know there's like a street that just cuts through the whole park, and we see these two cops, and everyone's like, "Hey, you know, cool it, cops."
Six
you know?
up.
Yeah, totally. And so we're all just standing around. And I remember reaching, I have no idea why I did this either, but as the cops are rolling through, I remember looking at the cars, and they're like, it's like the backs of the car stopped and the front just kept going, and like it turned into like a cop car limo. And then the back like caught up with it, and then like it kept like doing that, like stretching down the road.
Oh, that's
like, holy
awesome.
shit, dude. And I was getting all these like stretchy visuals, and I remember at one point, and then the cops left. And some of the kids were like, "Hey, let's go to a convenience store and get some candy." And I was like, "Dude, I don't think I can make that journey, but will someone get me like something to drink?" And I remember reaching into my pocket and grabbing $1 out, and then I just watched the dollar just like dolly like melt out of my hand all the way into the sand, and I thought I dropped it because it hit the sand. And then I'm like digging around the sand for the $1, and my friends are like, "Dude, just give me that $1." And like, I was told several of the things the next day that I did.
Sounds like a good day.
Yeah, and then I'm like, and so then everyone wants to go to the convenience store, and I was like, cool, okay, like I think I can keep it together, let's go. And then we all start trucking, and then they're right in front of me. They're 3 feet in front of me, and I lose sight of them.
Oh no.
And I turn to my girlfriend, I'm like, they ditched us. And she's like, no, they're right there. I'm like, where? She's like, right in front of you. And I'm like, no, they left us. And I just turn around and like was like, I don't know where they went. And she was like, okay. And like stuck with me. And so we just like hung out in the park.
Oh my God.
I remember at one point we were like hanging out in the, like they had a bathroom, and we were like hanging out in there. And I had like a toy squirt gun, and I got all flipped out about it. I was like, fuck guns and violence, and like smashed the squirt gun and shit. And she was just like, okay, dude, like settle down. Like, I vaguely remember that scene. And then I don't even know, man. I don't remember where I stayed that night or like what even happened, dude. It was a lot of just fucking really off the rails tripping, but it was completely life changing. I left that experience and was like, okay, well, here we are. There was before Nate and after Nate, right. You know, and like this is something worth pursuing. And so then, you know, I started doing my research. I had done a little bit already, but I really started doing my research because, again, like most people will tell you they feel something profound when they trip, and I was like, that was insane. Like, I can't begin to understand what happened, so I need to understand that, and I need to understand what this profound thing was that happened to me.
Yeah.
And so, you know, as most first trips are, it was the catalyst for everything that happened after this. So we proceed to go back to Zach. And we're just like, dude, those mushrooms were insane. He was like, see, I fucking told you, you dumb kids. Like, you just had to try them one more time. And we were like, yes. So more of those, please. And he was like, okay, like, I'll see what I can do. And I don't think he actually did find anything for us, but we immediately started just like bugging him all the time. And I think he got kind of a little sick of us, but we were persistent, and that's how we ended up hanging out with. That's how I ended up meeting Brett. Was we just like kept bugging Zach to hang out and like help us get drugs, and finally like one night, actually, and because we told him that we like to play music, because we were both like hack amateur musicians. Like Joe's fucking with guitar, and I had drums, and I had some like I had a little 4-track recorder, and that's what really got him to let us hang out. Was I mentioned I had a 4-track, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like all right, bring your gear over, let's hang out." And so we did, and yeah, so like one night, he finally like let us come over to their place, and I don't even think we tripped, but we got like pretty high and just recorded like experimental improv. It was terrible. Like, it was just a bunch of fucking stoned teenagers like banging on instruments, but we recorded it, and we were all just like, "This is brilliant, like we're fucking gonna be a great band," and all this stuff. But that was kind of, but then that was kind of the rest of it was because after that, like Zach and Brett liked us. They were like, "These kids are all right. They're fucking goofballs, but like,
oh yeah,
we'll put up with them." Like, actually that first night, because we got so stoned at their place, and Joe drove, and then we like we were gonna leave, and then we go and we're sitting in Joe's car, and he's like, "I'm too stoned to drive." And we were just like, "Fuck, what do we do?" We were just like, "Well, let's just hang out here and like smoke cigarettes for a little bit, and like we'll come down." And then at one point they came outside. We had been out there for probably like 45 minutes, and they like tap on the window like, "What are you guys fucking doing?" And we're like, "I don't know, we're too stoned." And they're like, "Just come back inside."
Like, hang out here and act sketchy.
Yeah,
like,
right?
Fucking come inside.
Yeah, they're like, "You fucking goobers." Like, God damn it. So
someone's gonna call the cops with you idiots.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so we had a couple, and I think I think Brett had already dropped out, and Zach was a senior about to drop out. So they had taken us under their wing, so to speak.
Right.
They're like, "All right, these kids they'll turn out all right. Maybe if we're there, like they'll be okay."
Right.
So that leads us to, well, yeah, and so that's it. So I just tripped that one time, and that was like, I want to say that was, Jesus, dude, I don't know. I think that was in the spring. And then not long after that, my girlfriend breaks up with me out of nowhere and just moves back to her home state, and didn't even really tell me. Like, I'm pretty sure she called me from her home state and was like, "Yeah, so I moved back to wherever."
Now you're still in high school at this point?
Yeah.
Was she also in high school?
Yeah, we were the same age. She was 1 year older than me, but we were in the same grade.
So her family moved away?
No, she moved back and didn't tell me why. And
so she was living out there by herself?
No, she was living with her sister and her brother.
Oh.
She moved back with her parents.
Got it. Okay.
And never told me why.
That's right. You mentioned this earlier. That's why it didn't matter if you came over and you guys got totally freaky. It was because there was no parents involved.
Nope. Okay. Totally. And and around this time too. Oh yeah. So around in 10th grade, I had also met this guy Chris. Chris was my greatest excuse ever, because he became kind of a close friend, but my mom didn't know his mom, and so it was like, I'm just gonna go stay at Chris's house tonight, and it was fine, and she had no contact with Chris or his mom. Like, if I said I was gonna go stay at Joe's, that could get real sticky.
Right.
But yeah, Chris was like a new friend, and my mom was like willing to give me the freedom, because I was a good student. I was always a good kid, so my mom like gave me the freedom to do stuff.
But she never once was like, "Oh, give me his parents' numbers."
I probably did, but like, she had no reason to ever call. So, and I may have given her a real or fake number. Sorry, Mom. You know what, Mom? I'm just going to address you real quick. This episode, it's going to be a lot of shit you never heard. You probably always suspected. But hey, sorry. you know, like, this is what happened. This is how it went down.
Yeah, and just as an aside, I don't know why I never thought that my parents would be listening to this, but my mom let me know that she was listening to the episode on her way to visit her mom for Mother's Day. And I was like, Yeah, I'm glad I said nice things about you in that one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Always nice things to say about my mom. Maybe until the end of this one. No, I'm kidding. I kid.
Love you, Mom.
Yeah.
Happy Mother's Day
to all the moms. So that sort of broke my heart at the end of 10th grade. Again, she just called me and was like, yeah, like, I moved back. Sorry. I was like, okay, like, why?
Whoa.
And she was like, it's personal. And it was just like, okay. But we were, like, pretty close. Like, or I felt like we were. And she just, like, kind of never gave me the time of day. And was
wow, what
like,
did you do?
I don't know. Part of me always wonders if I got her pregnant, honestly. You know?
Yeah, that's a sobering thought.
Yeah, like I could have a 25-year-old kid running around right now. Or no, like what would it be? No,
I was going to say.
It'd be 23. You know?
All right.
I don't know. No idea.
Well, shout out to you, Kylo Ren. Eventually,
Yeah.
when you try to kill your father, maybe talk to him first. I'm just saying.
No, I have no idea. No, she always told me that she had like some medical thing that she already knew about that she was never going to be able to have kids. So I was like, okay. Again, I have no fucking idea.
So, no, I'm not even going to complete that thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's fair. So that kind of broke my heart at the end of 10th grade, and that is what really gave me agency to just go and do whatever the fuck I wanted. I was like, okay, well, heartbroken, I guess it's drug time.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. So, okay. So, like, you have all of these cute little, like, formative psychedelic experiences mixed with rad sex, right? And
yeah, I mean, like, one big trip.
Oh, okay. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, so you had one big trip and a lot of rad sex, and now you've had your heart broken, so it's time to go all in on the psychedelics.
Pretty much. Yeah. I was like, I'm still down to meet chicks, but, heartbroken a little bit.
Right,
so.
but now you just, like, you have the psychic fortitude and the don't give a fuck attitude to really go for it.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I was like, yeah, now I don't have anyone to, like, be beholden to or communicate with or check in with or anything. So, like, anything I do at this point is just, like, all up to me. Also, like I said, I had definitely got on in 10th grade, but I still didn't really feel like I had found who I was. Still felt like I was just trying to follow a crowd or try and be something to impress other people, and I still felt like behind everyone, like socially. And so then that was it. And so I was like, well, you know what? Psychedelics, the experience that I have when I do psychedelics, or that I had when I did it that first time, was that it completely took everything apart in my brain, and then as I was trying to reconcile it and understand what happened to me, I got to rewire things. I got to put things back in different places.
Cool.
Like imagine like like people who do like what do you call that? Like music on those big soundboards with like all the patch cords,
Analog, yeah.
Yeah, just like analog
synth.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's how I treated my brain. I was like, my brain's an analog synth, and this patch cord doesn't seem to work right here. But let's try it over here. I don't actually know what it's going to do, but let's try it over here.
Hey, Ducky, let's see what happens when we put the 7-inch in the computer.
Yeah, dude.
Wow, that was a fucking Prince Bat Dance reference for all of you fucking...
Oh, that is Bat Dance. Hell yeah. Shout out to Bat Dance.
Anyway.
So that was sort of how I viewed it. I was like, all right, let's just start fucking around. Let's just start rewiring our head. And right around then, I started getting in... So end of 10th grade, I was like getting into punk rock. And was sort of like... I had some adjacent friends who like... Some of our friends who went to Fort Collins High School got like really into punk rock. So like John got a mohawk and started hanging out with like Dr. Neptune, and met this other kid Mike, and they all like were doing punk rock things and like drinking a bunch. And
Dr. Neptune.
Yeah, and then I met my friend Chris. Yeah, Dr. Neptune. They got kind of famous, but they're all like my contemporaries. They were local in Fort Collins, so I think again this might have been in the Glenn episode, but it's
for me it's just a callback to a sample off of DJ Shadow's first album.
Oh, yeah.
It's an interlude. I'll get you some more of Dr. Neptune's delicious elixir.
Surely it was a reference to that. I mean, I'd have to imagine, but...
I mean, maybe they were actually referencing the original film, but
yeah,
who knows?
No, and it was this whole wild scene. Like, all the kids that were surrounded with Dr. Neptune and, like, with us, and then some of the other people... But this wasn't Brett and Zach's crew, because they were all 2 years older than us. Right. So it's like we were hanging out with our contemporaries and our peers that were all our age, that were like kind of punk rocking. Some of them were tripping, but not all of them. And then there was like Zach and Brett and their friends who were all older than us, and we would definitely like trip with them.
And what was their deal? Like, were they like subscribing to a particular subculture, or were they just kind of...
They were like hippie, and they were like hippie avant-garde weirdos.
Cool.
Like, yeah, which is what we really liked. We would go hang out with like the punk rock kids, because those were like our friends from junior high,
right?
And like it seemed like a scene that we should check out or whatever. But at the end of the day, we always kept coming back to hang out with like Brett and Zach, because it was like, cool. No, dude, we want the low key, like weird psychedelic hippie vibe,
right?
And oh fuck, where was I going with all of this? Oh yeah, so so I had also met my friend Chris. He was a punk rocker. Like, he had fucking, I don't even know what his hair was doing. I think when I met him, he had a full fucking like 6-inch mohawk.
Damn.
But then he like shaved it into, I helped him shave it into some weird ass fucking thing. I don't even remember what it was. Like, we shaved like weird little like horns and strands and stuff. Yeah, dude. This kid was wild as fuck, and he was super into like Minor Threat and stuff. So I was getting into like pop punk, like Guttermouth and NoFX, which he liked, but he was like, no, dude, check out like Bad Brains and Minor Threat and stuff.
Yeah, like I can't believe it took me so fucking long to figure out who those guys actually were. But
yeah.
Like, when one of my friends was finally like, oh, no, you've heard Bad Brains' reggae album? Fuck that, dude.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
they're like maybe the first hardcore punk band, and I'm like,
yeah,
you're thinking of a different Bad Brains. But
yeah, and he got me into a lot of that other stuff too. Like, yeah, he definitely like walked the line. He liked Op Ivy and like some Rancid and stuff, and some
Op Ivy's the shit,
some NoFX and stuff. But he was like, no, dude, check out like the old DC stuff. But yeah, and so he was kind of like showing me the way in punk rock, and I was like, yeah, dude, and I was starting to like develop my attitude a little too, of like, yeah, dude, like, I can fucking be this person. I can like kind of get rowdy a little bit. And so I started doing that and hanging out with him a lot. And but he was hilarious. So it was this perfect fucking, we bridged this perfect gap. He didn't smoke weed at all. He hated it because he said it made him slow, because he was punk rock, right?
Oh boy.
He liked to drink, but dude was a fiend for acid. That was his favorite thing to do ever.
Cool.
And so we started hanging out, and he was like, let's do some acid. And I was like, all right. And so I finally tracked some down. And yeah, so talking about weed as a catalyst, so I bought 2 hits from this dude. He said it was Leary. I was like, whatever, I don't care if it is or isn't, but like, or no, he said it was like LSD 25, you know. He said it was like,
okay, because I've seen the 4-hit Tim Leary Silhouette acid. We had some of that.
It wasn't that. Yeah, it was. They were just tiny little hits. They were gloss. They were like weirdly shimmery though, and I was like, all right, you know, like I'll take you up on this. But it was like this gangster kid. I definitely felt like I was getting ripped off, but I was like, I couldn't find any acid. And me and Chris really wanted a trip, and so bought these hits, dude. It took like 3 hours to kick in, and Chris didn't smoke weed, and he fucking hated it. And so we're like wandering around the park and wandering around the nature center for like 3 hours, and we're like, we got sold bunk acid, man. This sucks, dude. I was like, well, man, I brought a big joint. I know you don't like weed, but you want to smoke this joint? And he was just like, fine, you know. And we fucking climbed this tree, and we're just sitting in this branch like over the river and fucking smoked this joint, dude. And by the end of the joint, we're both just like, what, you know, like like shit totally kicked in, and like, yeah, I don't know. And we both, and that turned him around on weed. He was like, all right, maybe I need weed to like kick the acid in every now and again.
Dude, Do you mind if I interject with like a 2-minute story?
No, do it.
So my buddy Doug, when we were like getting into weed, he was like, "You guys are fucking idiots," and we're like, "What the fuck is your problem?" And he's like, "My parents used to smoke that shit all the time. It just made them stupid." And we're like, "Well, fuck you, man. Maybe they had shit weed. Like,
yeah,
you don't know." And yeah, just had this stick up his butt about weed because his parents used to smoke it, and he was like, "I don't like the smell." Blah blah blah. Anyway, we smoked weed around him plenty of fucking times, and we always gave him shit about it. Fast forward to when we're getting into acid, and he's like, "I want to try this. Like, I've read stories about this. Blah blah blah. I want to fucking know what this is all about." And we're like, "All right, cool. We got some acid, and you know, Sean's mom's gone for the fucking weekend, so like, let's go hang out at his house." And he's like, "Cool." And so we fucking take our acid. I think it was just like a hit a piece of some kind of random blotter. Anyway, me and Sean bust out the weed and like start smoking, and he's like, "Why are you fucking doing that?" And we're like, "Dude, really? Are you gonna fucking start again with this shit?" And he's like, "I just don't understand. Like, you guys are doing this amazing fucking like life-altering drug, and you're just gonna sit here and like smoke weed?" We're like, "Dude, like, are you nervous right now?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like, I could lose my mind." And we're like, "Yeah, no shit. Like, we have a lot of anxiety too. Guess what? If you smoke a little weed, you forget about it.
Yeah,
it takes your mind off of it, takes the edge off, and like, next thing you know, you're tripping balls, and it's awesome." And he's like, "God damn it, I want to do that." And we're like, "Well, fucking smoke some weed."
We're like, "Yeah, dude. Yeah."
So Doug smoked some weed, had a great time, and became like the biggest stoner out of all of my friends after that.
Oh yeah, this dude ended up like, as far as I know, last I heard from this dude Chris, he grows weed on an alpaca farm. Like, I'm not even kidding, dude.
I couldn't have set that up better.
Yeah.
Jesus
totally.
Christ.
And he still, like, talked shit about weed after that day, but he definitely started, like, accepting it a little bit more and would use it to, like, excel a trip if we needed to or whatever.
It can be a tool, you know? Like, come on.
So, yeah, totally. Totally. No, and I wonder if it was just both of our apprehensions that wasn't letting us, like, cross the threshold on that trip, because like seriously 3 hours is a long time for something to kick in.
I mean, you know, first time,
and it was the
sobriety, all that shit, you know.
Yeah, and it was the only time I had ever experienced it taking that long, and then for it to just happen so quickly, and then and then we ended up having like the best fucking night, man. Nice. Just fucking dude, and it was some of the best acid I've ever done. Just so clean, just perfect fucking feeling all night, and it was like, damn, that gangster dude did sell us a fucking good hit, you know? It was like, right on, because we thought for sure we got ripped off. There was also the apprehension, anxiety about that. I was like, oh yeah, I bought it off fucking dude, and he was like, yeah, it's probably bunk, and I was like, it probably is.
Right.
And so we both were just like sure of that, and then like, yeah, so we had probably just talked ourselves down from the ability to even like get there or whatever.
Yeah, you know, consciousness is a weird thing.
It's a weird thing, yeah. And then that trip's really unique because I never really like thought you could control it as much. But again, that just led further to like, oh, I have control over my mind and my psyche, you know? Until I don't, until something just like loosens me up and then I get there or whatever. So this is all like pretty timey-wimey. No, because I bought it from a dude in high school. That had to have happened at the end of 10th grade. So I think before the summer started, it was like the first mushroom trip, that acid trip, and maybe there's probably one other in there, maybe. But then
you mean you don't have specific records
detailing
this stuff?
Again, this is timey-wimey as fuck. Like, I have it listed out here, and I think the order that everything happened.
Oh god, tell me about it, dude. I'm really happy that you made me outline my fucking big story, because it was a mess, and it would have been an even bigger mess.
Yeah,
if I hadn't sat and thought about it.
So it'll all make sense at the end of the day, because there's the big stops and starts here, but the little trips and the little asides are gonna be probably here or there. I'm not sure,
dude. I mean, I'm all about little trips.
Yep. So little trips.
You don't want your acid to get stuck on your lips. Try little trips.
So things really start escalating once the school year ends. So, I've done these couple trips. I had my heart broken, but I start this job. I had this job actually the previous summer. So 9th to 10th grade. Shout out Steve, friend of the pod. Got me this job the summer between 9th and 10th grade at this place called Fossil Creek Nursery. It was just a plant nursery. Fucking gorgeous place. Like, this was such a cool job because it was... Oh, man. I'm bad at area measurement, but I would guess it's like 30-acre tree farm / nursery. So they had like a huge building with a greenhouse, all your normal nursery stuff, like, flowers and shrubberies and everything, but then a just gigantic tree farm. And we sold all the trees. I mean, we were one of 2 or 3 of the only nurseries in town, and we might have been the biggest one.
Nice.
And this job was fucking sick, man. Like, I was in the best shape I was ever in my life because I was doing hard labor, mixed with occasionally I'd get to do sales and help out customers and stuff, but it was just kind of whatever they wanted me to do. And so basically I rolled around, I had a little fucking walkie-talkie radio, and anyone just called me to do whatever. It was like, you gotta load a tree, you gotta fucking pull all these shrubs for this customer, you gotta go and like load this person's car, you gotta go and do this other thing, or just these random jobs like it's like you got to go take care of the wasps in the fucking barn.
I was gonna say,
yeah,
there's a cat underneath the building that's dead, and you need to get it out.
So the first summer I worked there, one day they were like, okay, so dude, pallets were the bane of my existence the entire time I worked there because everything that we did came in on pallets, right? Giant fucking like things of bark and mulch came in on pallets. Giant fucking things of shrubs and like tiny like sapling trees and stuff came in on pallets. So it was constant pallet management.
Yeah.
And we would get refunds. So like they were labeled, like they'd be spray painted. Like one side was like, these all went to this vendor and these all went to this vendor. So it was constantly like trying to manage these pallets and keep them in certain areas. And then at one point they're like, okay, like actually I think Steve and I did this. I think we spent a weekend stacking pallets where it was like we just had this giant pallet fucking yard, and it was like, okay, sort them by vendor and make giant stacks because we're gonna sell them all back to the vendors and stuff. Then I had the task of taking all the ones that were either unlabeled or broken, and they wanted me to take them out and repair them. So if it had a broken slat, pull that slat off and hammer a new slat on and make it a functional pallet, and then we can sell it back to that vendor.
Oh, wow.
So I spent like a whole fucking weekend, maybe even longer, just like taking a hammer and just like ripping pallets apart.
That's fucking Charlie work right there.
Oh, dude, we were the Charlies. So Steve and we were the Charlies of this place because everyone else was college. It was like college kids who did all the sales stuff. And then there's the Mexican dudes who like worked the backyard and they like handled all the pots, like all the old, anytime like a tree or like a shrub came out of a pot, they would stack and manage those. They would also just handle all of the backyard stuff, like watering all the trees, pruning, taking care of all the like trees in the backyard. And they just stuck to the backyard. So we were all of the front of the house grunt work, like any bullshit bad terrible thing, like Steve, I remember Steve digging a trench in the rain at one point. We like dug a man-made pond at one point. Then that pond got infected with duckweed, and duckweed is like this little tiny it's not a lily, but it's like a little tiny like water plant that just multiplies rapidly, and it'll just take over a pond. And that's where we were going to keep all of our lilies, but it got duckweed in it, and you just can't ever get rid of it. And so what we had to do was every week hop in there and take and just get like chest deep in water and just walk around and like take a board and push all of the duckweed to one side and then bail it out, you know?
Wait, so you guys dug a chest deep pond?
Yeah.
And then you had to get in there and fish out all the weed?
Yeah, totally. Weekly. And we would fill
that's real Charlie
like
work.
3 20-gallon buckets full of like this duckweed, and then turn that into like compost and mulch and stuff. The pallet stacking was outrageous because like pallets are heavy, and we were out there like stacking fucking tons of pallets.
Here's the thing, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in this day and age, pallets are made out of high impact plastic.
Oh yeah.
Back then, if any of our listeners are unaware, they were made out of the splinteriest oak that anyone could find.
Oh yeah, it was such a crazy dangerous job too. So okay. So back to when I was rebuilding the pallets, that's when I put a nail through my foot.
Why'd you do that?
Well, because I'm just like thanks. Because I'm just tearing pallets apart, and so there's nails and fucking shards of wood with nails sticking out of them everywhere. Because I'm just tearing them apart and hammering new ones together, stacking them. And I just turned around and just stepped directly on a nail, and it just went through the center of my foot.
That's not what you want.
Nope. And it was really uncomfortable, and I then had to go get a tetanus shot, which was even more. So put a nail through my foot, then put a giant nail in my arm. Yeah,
that's the thing, is those syringes are essentially just lances.
Oh yeah, it was huge. It was terrifying, dude. In fact, it was maybe even less terrifying because it wasn't even a fucking needle. It was a fucking dagger, dude.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, well, I guess like I'm not really even afraid of needles. Yeah, like I don't even know what this is. This isn't a needle.
Taking a core sample.
Yeah, totally, dude. And that's what it felt like too, man. The tetanus shot liquid, at least back in the 90s, it's thick, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like they plunge it into my arm. I was like, well, that's uncomfortable. And then they plunge the fucking liquid in, and I'm like, oh, that's really uncomfortable.
Intramuscular injections, man.
Yeah, and it was just, they just plunged it into my shoulder, dude. It wasn't a vein shot. Like,
no.
This thing was wider than any of my veins.
Pump your meat full of goo.
Oh, it was gnarly, dude. So, so we did all sorts of that stuff, man. I could maybe even do a cast on just working at that nursery, because at the same time, even though we did all the fucking shittiest work ever, it was still so much fun. Like, we had golf carts that we got to drive around.
Shut up.
And that's how, so they would be like, go pick up 3 of these shrubs, and like these little trees for these customers. And so we'd hop on the golf cart.
It's fucking Tokyo Drift over there.
Yeah, dude. Yes, yep. We would fucking...
I understand golf carts.
We would bomb out there, and we figured out a way to... so you could lift the seat up, and they had the governor, and you would just...
I knew this was coming.
You would just pull the governor up and, like, shove, like, a little stick underneath it, and then that would get you an extra, like, 10 miles an hour on this golf cart that shouldn't be doing more than, like, 20, and we're, like, bombing ass going, like, 30, 35 around this fucking place. I think we got it stuck in a fucking ditch once.
Of course you did.
Yeah. There were other, and then we also had flatbed, little like flatbed, not trucks, but like little flatbed, just like
carts.
Yeah. But we could also get them moving pretty fast, and so we'd like race those.
Were those 4-wheel or 6-wheel?
4-wheel. Yeah.
Cool.
So we would cruise those things around. Yeah, I mean, like, the job was fun. We had a big pond. We had another non-man-made pond that we built a rope swing, and, like, we would rope swing that thing. Like, we had some really good times out of that job, even though, we were busting our balls. Actually, okay, so, one more thing that we did. And this... I am amazed that I can even drink whiskey to this day, but, half whiskey barrels are great planters. Like, people have them out in their front yard, it's
absolutely
a giant half barrel. You fill it with soil and flowers and whatever else. So we would get huge shipments of these. They were wildly popular, and right in front of the nursery we would have a big display, and we would basically build a pyramid of them, with them all sort of like opening down, and build like a pyramid. But when they would come into us on the trucks, they'd just be in these stacks of like 7, so they'd be way taller than I was, like 7-8 feet tall, stacks of 7, and and then we would just knock them over, wrestle them apart, because they'd get sort of like jammed into each other, and we'd have to sort of like rock them around and like wrestle them apart, and then stack up our cart, drag them out to the front, and refill the display. But it would rain in the summer a lot, And so
Jesus.
These giant stacks would fill with water and then just drain through each layer, right?
Right.
And they're whiskey barrels, and they're burnt out, but they're still whiskey fucking soaked through the wood of these things.
Absolutely.
And so you'd get to the bottom of these, and so we would knock over the giant stack of like 7 half barrels, and then the bottom one is just full of rank, stagnant whiskey moldy water, and it was the most putrid smell I've ever smelled in my life, because it was just rotting whiskey rainwater. And
why didn't they stack them upside down?
No fucking clue.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, no fucking clue. So there were numerous things there that I didn't know any better to be like, hey, we should do this differently. I just did whatever they told me because it was a job, and I just did it. So, but it was cool, man. I also learned how to like do bonsai trees while I was
gonna
there.
say, did you guys have bonsais? Because
hell yeah, we did.
Thing about nurseries.
Hell yeah, we did, and we had a whole bonsai section in our greenhouse. And we had people who came out and did bonsai workshops. So I actually learned how to do bonsai. I can still do it to this day. And we had an 84-year-old orange tree.
Whoa.
The thing was big for bonsai, but like still not that big.
Sure.
And when we worked there, it was the first year it had ever fruited. And it fruited these tiny little like ping pong ball sized oranges. And they were completely inedible because you're packing all the citrus of a regular orange into like a ping pong ball.
It's a crazy thing though, because like I've talked to other bonsai people and they're like, well, no, I mean, if it fruits, it's just a normal fruit because it's like,
no,
you can't miniaturize the fruit on
no,
a tree.
you can, and we did, because those oranges were Mandarin oranges, and they were like smaller than ping pong balls. Like, it was crazy, dude.
Sure, but I'm just saying, like, there's a bonsai nursery in LA, and like, and they did a pomegranate.
Oh yeah,
and I mean, it's just going to grow normal pomegranates.
It just grew full-size pomegranates?
Well, that's the thing, is it's not a miniature tree. It's just a tree that you've stunted its growth.
Right, so it's stunted. Yeah. So it can only put so much energy into making a fruit.
Sure.
That's why it took it 85 years to create one, and then it couldn't flesh out a full-sized fruit. Like, it only got so big.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, even though you're making the plant smaller...
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean that the fruit is going to end up stunted.
Oh, I mean, I guess maybe not.
Because you're not miniaturizing anything.
No.
You're just taking a plant and you're keeping it small.
Right. So,
totally. When this pomegranate fruited, it was like, here's this fucking huge pomegranate on this shitty little tree.
Well, shit, and I guess maybe we just pulled those oranges early because we knew that, like, if they grew to full size, it was going to, like, weigh this tree down.
Right.
So that could have been what happened. Interesting.
But yeah, I mean, like, that's what, like, until that point, I had thought of bonsai trees as just being miniature trees, so everything would be smaller on them.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's like, how do you do that by just putting a tree in a smaller pot? Like, that's impossible. Like, you just prune a tree really well and you keep it small,
right?
And it looks amazing,
Right? Yeah, I mean, you're stunting it by the small pot and you're forcing the angles with the wiring and stuff.
But like the leaves and whatever else it grows are going to be normal size. Like, that's just how plants work.
I mean, sort of. I mean, man, this orange tree, everything was small, though. Like,
sure,
the leaves were small.
Sure, but I'm saying, like, that had to do with the size of the branches. Like, you don't get big leaves on small branches.
Okay, sure. Well, so maybe I had it all wrong.
But
it was the only tree we ever had that fruited anything. So,
and I mean, like, maybe with citrus, like, smaller branches, smaller fruit. Who knows? Maybe just this fucking pomegranate was a dick. Who knows? But like that's a major misconception that I had about bonsai trees for a long time. Which
interesting.
Was that, like, you could just make this miniature tree, and like, no, it's.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
they make it look like that through careful pruning and gardening and
right, and I knew that, but I guess I lived my whole life thinking like, oh, if you just stunt it, then it's stunted for everything, including the fruits. So
that's what I thought.
Maybe
too.
I had it wrong,
but these guys attempted to set me straight.
Okay,
so
hey, I mean, I'll take it, man. It was a long time ago that I did this, But
well, and our listeners can prove us wrong. Like
yeah, totally. Yeah.
if you know anything about bonsai and we're sounding like total chump sacks here, please let us know.
Right. Totally. So long story short, working at this nursery was great. The 9th to 10th grade summer, I worked with Steve. I want to say he took a different job on the 10th to 11th grade summer, which is back to the summer in question here. But the point is that the job ruled because it kept me fit and it kept me responsible. Oh, yeah. So it was like I always had something that I sort of had to like go back to. I couldn't just go ham every single night of the week. It's like, no, I had to work 4 days out of the week or whatever. And it was rigorous. I had to get up early. It was hard labor in the sun. So like, fucking had to slow my roll occasionally.
Yeah, I'm glad that I had one of those jobs too. Like, say what you will about, or I will say what I will about fucking cleaning up job site trash, but
yeah,
being outside every day and doing physical work is a good thing for a young man.
Oh, hell yeah. Or really even anyone. Some days I think about that. I'm like, what if I just went and got like a...
Oh, shit,
like
dude.
an in-the-sun labor job. Like,
no, if there was an in-the-sun labor job that would pay my bills adequately,
yeah,
that would be amazing.
Yep.
But unless it's like a road crew job or some other kind of like union,
it's certainly not going to be
shit.
It's certainly not going to be like working in fucking tree paradise, which is, again, even though in spite of all the hard labor and all the bullshit we did there, it was still just so fun. It was so gorgeous, man. Just like so many times. Oh, okay. Because we might as well just get it all out. I have 2 other like short little anecdotes about working at this place and how insanely dangerous it was sometimes.
I'm sorry, we're pressed for time. You're going to need to skip this.
You're right. So one of the things was we sold steel siding, that people would use for like edging in their gardens.
Do I ever know that shit?
And that shit is razor sharp.
Oh yeah.
And it was so crazy.
Dude, man, fuck sheet metal. Like, let me just go on record as having said fuck sheet metal.
Yeah, and so every time we had to sell some of that stuff, it was such a fucking concern because it was like, because that stuff would just, it was long. They were like these long sheets too, like 7-8 feet long, little like strips.
Yeah.
And all one had to do was sort of like bend in a weird way, and it could just catch your arm and like slice you right open.
Oh yeah.
And
metal's a lot harder than flesh, it turns out.
Yeah, totally.
When you put an edge on it, it cuts.
So it was always so concerning, like working with that stuff. But the one big thing that I always remember, so we had all different arrays of trees. We had like little saplings in pots, next generation, even up to like big generation trees that were 12, 15 feet tall with giant root balls.
Right.
And when people bought those, we would go get the tractor. We couldn't drive the tractors. There were only a few people who were authorized to drive the tractors, but they'd basically get like a scoop bed tractor, but then someone would have to help out, and guess who would help out?
Charlie.
Yep. And so basically what I would do is I would dig out the root ball. The root ball is like encased in burlap, and then it had a metal cage around that.
Right.
And I would take these giant fucking chains and I would put these hooks around 4 points of the root ball, and then I would take the other ends of the chain and walk them over to the scoop bed, and then the scoop beds had like little hooks, and I'd wrap the chains around that, and then the dude in the tractor would raise the scoop bed, and then that would lift the root ball up out of the ground, and the tree would sort of like the trunk, the top and the trunk would sort of swing down as the root ball like came up and out of the ground. Most of the time it was fine, and all I was there to do was sort of like guide it and make sure the tree just didn't like start swinging around wildly, right?
This is real Mickey Mouse, dude.
But yeah, one day we're pulling like the biggest tree in the yard, and the root ball was almost, it was taller than me. I'm 5'8". Root ball was like about 5'8".
Jesus.
It was massive root ball. Very tall tree. I want to say the tree itself was 15 feet. It's probably about right. Maybe 12 feet. And so as he's pulling the root ball out, the cage broke and the root ball fell from a height of a couple feet.
Fuck.
Luckily, I totally I was not under it or anything. I was moving it around. I heard the snap and backed away, but that tree fell. But dude in the tractor couldn't see me, and he comes running out of the tractor, and he was like, "Oh my God, man, like, I thought you just got crushed under that tree." Yeah. I was like, "No, I'm fine, dude." But it was a real concern after that. So we started checking for like rust on the cages and stuff. But yeah, it was nuts, man. That place was crazy.
Jesus, dude.
But I had a lot of fun working there. And again, it kept me accountable and probably was a big factor in why my mom kind of let me do whatever I wanted that summer, was because I'd gotten good grades. I'd always had good grades, but I had gotten good grades in 10th grade, wasn't in any trouble, had a job, just wanted to go hang out with my friends all the time. And so then I had pretty much total freedom, and Joe turned 16 and got a car. So then it was fucking on, dude. Like, it's like, we get to just cruise around and do whatever. So that was kind of like what happened all that summer. But early in the springtime, yeah, we knew that it was just going to be the summer of love, man, that we were just going to fucking trip and like go ham. And before the summer sort of really fleshed itself out, before we established kind of everything, kind of how our day-to-day started going, I got to do this one trip in particular where I had a day off. I called up Brett and was like, "Hey, what's going on? You know, like, you guys looking to get in anything?" And he was like, "Actually,
now that you mention it,
I just bought the brand new Flaming Lips record." And that record is Zyreka.
God damn it.
Yeah. So,
ooh,
for the listener at home, Zyreka is a Flaming Lips record that they put out in the late 90s that is 4 discs. It's 4 CDs that all have to be played simultaneously on 4 separate stereos at the same time. There's a lot that goes into this. Like, the Flaming Lips did all of this stuff prior to that called like parking lot experiments, where they had multiple car stereos with different tapes with different tracks recorded. And I think those parking lot experiments were like upwards of like 50 or 60 cars, and they had all these different like sounds playing, and then Wayne from the Flaming Lips would walk around with a little like tape recorder with a microphone, like film all the different soundscapes, and like certain parts of the parking garage would like erupt into insect noise, and certain parts would erupt into like string noise, and they just did all this like really, really fucking large scale soundscape stuff, which blew my fucking little mind. I mean, yeah. we were really getting into music at this point and like wanting to play music more, and we were just like, holy shit, dude, these guys are cutting the edge.
Oh yeah,
in a big bad way. And so this just intrigued me to no end. So I was like, I am there. Let's meet up. So I go and, I don't know, hop a bus, whatever, meet up with Brett. Zach's there. And they're like, yeah, we're going to take mushrooms and listen to this album.
Nice.
I'm like, cool, I'm in. And I was like, you guys got some extra mushrooms for me? And Zach was like, well, I happen to have this 1/8 for sale, if you're interested. And I was like, I am interested, and I have money. And this 1/8 was 1 mushroom.
God damn it.
And this 1/8 was probably not 3.5 grams. It was probably closer to 5. This is probably as close as I've ever gotten to a heroic dose.
Nice.
But it was like one giant shroom that like filled the sandwich baggie, you know? And like the bottom was all gnarly with all the like white fucking powdery. Yeah. Like, dude, and it was just gnarly as fuck. And so we all sit down in the park and we're like, okay, what's the plan to listen to this album? And Brett's like, oh, my friend Joel, I think we can go meet up with him. And I think his parents are out of town for the weekend or out of town for the day, and like we can probably just go hang out. It's like, cool. And he's like, but we're all gonna take mushrooms right now. Cool.
Yeah,
I'm on board. Not? Sign me up. So so they're all nibbling on their mushrooms. They hand me this mushroom, and I just gobble like half of it. And they're like, right on, man. Like, good job, dude. And I've still got that like kind of bottom chunk in there.
Ooh, nice.
And then, yeah, sure enough, like, someone gets a page, you know, because it's before cell phones.
Oh, pagers.
Someone gets a page, and it's like, oh, cool, okay, let's go meet up with our friend Mel. And so this was this girl that Zach was kind of... Well, Zach and Brett knew him, and I think Zach had maybe started dating her at this point. And she picks us up, and then we go over to our friend Joel's house. And, like, I'm definitely coming up by the time we roll over there. But Joel's cool. I think I had met him once before. Maybe. And... basically we show up and we're like, okay, we've got to set this thing up, right? And everyone's on board, and so like Joel like digs out all this fucking stereo gear, like grabs like the living room stereo and like drags it out, and he's got a garage, and so there's one stereo in there, and then we had a boombox, but we're still one stereo short, so we just pulled Mel's car like halfway into the garage and just like opened the doors and rolled down all the windows, and so there was our fourth stereo. And
wow.
Yeah, and Joel's garage was totally like a That 70s Show, you know. He had like couches and like a coffee table, and then we have all these speakers set up everywhere. And so I'm like, all right, dude, like, this is sick. We're gonna fucking do this Zyrika thing. So I gobble the rest of my mushroom, and we start listening to this album.
Now, did you just like time it by just, you know, everybody just being like, okay, go, or...
So, true to form, the first time, no, we did not, because we did not read the instruction manual.
Oh, god damn it.
So we just like put all of the discs in. We did sync the first ones. We were like, okay, play, go. This is the thing we didn't realize, and the booklet actually explains this. So the track lengths on each disc are the exact same. So it's like the track length for song number 1 is 3 minutes and 14 seconds on each disc. However, every CD player spins at a different speed.
True.
So, and the Lips didn't know this going into this. When they made the CD, they didn't know that there were going to be little variances. And you can't tell, like... You'll listen to a CD on several different CD players, and I mean, it's only speeding it up a little bit or slowing it down a little bit.
Right.
But they are not exact. So, which is actually kind of cool that they put it out on vinyl, because that will be exact. It will be 33 1/3 if you tune it in exactly, right? You know?
Well, but, like, how fucked is that a digital...
Right.
Fucking format...
Right. And so no one expected that. And so we just started all the CDs, and then kind of as the album starts ending, and you know, and it's fucking weird. Anyone who's done it, you know how weird it is. But if you don't restart each track, it gets weirder and weirder, because like shit just starts getting way more off. And we're all just like tripping out on this, like, holy fuck, what is going on?
Because it's just a cacophony.
Yeah, it's just chaos and cacophony, and we're just like, this is fucking crazy. And so, but we're all like passing the booklet around and like reading it. We're like, okay, we apparently need to restart each track at the same time,
right?
If we want the better experience. Because like, yeah, actually, so that first time through, it was like one disc ended, and then like 2 minutes later disc 2 ended, and then like 30 seconds later disc 3 ended, and then like another minute later disc 4 ended, and we were just like, wow, we got way off. Like that all fell like way apart. So
right.
And so like we're having a good time, and we're like, okay, let's try it again.
Yeah.
So we queue up all the tracks, we start queuing up all the tracks at the same time again, jam through the album. And yeah, and then that was a much better experience,
of course.
You know. And so we get through that listening, and we're just like, Jesus Christ, what a cool album! Like,
hell yeah,
this is so incredible. Like the soundscapes are just insane, and we're tripping balls. So we decided to just keep doing it. We're like, let's listen to it again. Nice. But let's like move the CDs around. Like we'll put this one in the car and this one over here. And like,
that's cool.
You know, and we're just like, let's play with this fucking thing, dude. They've given us this sandbox of an album that we just get to fuck with. And so we're just like, we're just messing with it a ton. Awesome. And then that's when things really start hitting me. Like right around the third listen through, And I remember like reading the liner notes, and the liner notes are really intense. The song lyrics are really intense. Everything that the lips do is intense.
Of course.
But I remember like gripping and sweating the liner notes, and I'm seeing like my thumbprints like bleeding the ink away from the liner notes because I'm just like gripping it and like reading it so intensely. At a certain point, I this was my only like leaving my body experience ever, or like the most intense one for sure. At a certain point, I remember looking at those liner notes and then setting them down. It was like, okay, like I can't like read that anymore. And I stood up and I walked out to the driveway, because again, the garage door is just open. We've got a car halfway pulled in, and I just walked out onto the driveway, and I was like looking up at the trees. And it starts raining, and all the raindrops are just turning super psychedelic, like, and they're turning into giant big drops. Like, I'm seeing these big purple and green and blue, crazy, like, swirling drops.
Sweet.
And then I float up into the rain, and then I turn around, and I'm looking down on top of the car, looking into the garage. And I float back into the garage, and then I'm sort of up in the corner, like looking down on everyone, and then I look over and I see myself gripping these fucking liner notes. And I'm like, holy fuck, dude, what is going on? And then that moment sort of like snapped me back, and then all of a sudden I sort of like open my eyes, and I'm sitting in that fucking seat gripping the liner notes. And I look outside, and it hadn't been raining at all. Like, the pavement is dry.
Whoa.
None of that had happened.
Nice.
Yeah, totally. And then that's when I sort of look up at everyone, and I remember saying something. And I remember trying to just explain, like, something very profound just happened to me, and everyone's like, all right, man, I think this dude just had a moment, you know? Because I just, like, I can't get it out. I'm just like, you know, and they're just like, it's cool, man, like, you're good, dude, like, just enjoy this, you know, like, let's smoke a little weed, maybe, like, you know, let's just, like, you're fine. And I'm just like, but, you know, and then, like, this song, and then he's, like, talking about I don't know, and then, like, you know, and I just can't, like, figure it out at all.
But it was all coming together in that moment.
Dude, it was the most profound ever, you know? It was just like I was seeing it all so clearly, and I was understanding that, hey, like, leaving your body is a thing that can happen.
Yep.
So I was like, I was totally fine with it, but having a really fucking intense moment. And to this day, forever, like, Zyreka will just carry so much weight with me, because there are some...
I know what we're doing this summer. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. Like, we got to do it. So, yeah, there's some really heavy moments on that album, lyrically and, like, sonically, too. So it was just, like, just these deep concepts, like, hammering me hard while I'm, deep in the throes of a fucking crazy trip.
And for our listeners who want to cheat, they actually put out a mix.
For listeners who want to cheat, don't. Just do yourself a favor. Just don't. Like... I've only ever listened to it on multiple stereos, and that is the only way I'll ever listen to it. So to this day, I've only heard the album like 10 times.
So we're actually going to back up and reverse our stance. Don't listen to the mixed Zyreka CD. Mm-mm. In fact, Coming Down only supports listening to Zyreka on multiple stereos.
Yep, it's the only way to do it. And you got to do it multiple times. You got to move the speakers around, move the CDs around. It's an immersive experience.
We're going to go ahead and say that if you're listening to the Zyreka mix CD, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I will say that. But, you know, I guess there's a couple jams on there.
Well, no, I mean, we're not saying that you shouldn't listen to Zyreka.
Yeah.
We're definitely not saying that. But we are saying that you should do it right.
So this goes on for a while. We keep playing this album over and over and over again.
As well, you should.
And so, yeah, we probably listened to it like 6 times. It's actually pretty short. It's like 40 minutes.
Right.
It's like 8 tracks, 40 minutes.
But it takes a lot of setup, and you're all on drugs.
Yeah, setup, drugs, all the other things. So, yeah, I'm guessing we listened to it 5 or 6 times, which is, 6 hours of tripping.
But I honestly kind of love trips where that happens, where it's like you all just kind of like recognize that this is the soundtrack that we need. We've tried other things and they're fine, but this is where we're all at, so why fuck around?
Oh, it was so clear.
This.
It was so clear that this was like everything that we wanted to be doing. We were all there for that reason.
Oh yeah. Tricky Max and Quay was my, like,
ooh, yeah.
Fuck everything else, we're tripping on this album.
Yeah, totally. Oh man, I've got another one about a specific album that we just fucking lay into.
But yeah, I'm sorry.
There's the final part of this particular incident. So, but if you want to interject, dude, we'll get there.
No, I wanted to talk about fucking Wizard of Oz and Dark Side kind of shit.
Yeah,
but I feel like that should happen after you finish this.
Okay,
so like, keep going.
Cool. So basically, yeah, we keep listening and. There's a thing that we had all read multiple times because we had all like sweated fingerprints into the liner notes of this fucking album.
You've taken turns, like,
we all were just obsessing over the lyrics,
melting into the lyrics.
Well, and the liner notes have this whole like essay that Wayne wrote about like doing like 3-dimensional soundscape music and just like everything that led to them like creating this album, and just it was just kind of blowing all of our minds as we were all musicians, and we were just like, man, this is like the next level of music. Like, it
really is.
Right? Like, this is where music goes from here, you know? And it never really did, but some bands did some 5.1 stuff, which was cool, but that's also crazy because Gershwin did quadraphonic shit back in the day. So, like,
right.
it was just it was a really good thing for the digital age, for the CD age.
It's the VR of music.
Yeah, totally.
It's exactly where everyone wants to be, but it's a lot more work than anyone wants to do.
Yeah, and this is the problem, and this is why, of course, it's never going to take off because it's a pain in the ass and it's gimmicky, and whatever. And I've heard some people like criticize it for it's like, oh, what a cool gimmick. It's like, yeah, okay, eat 5 grams of mushrooms and do it, and like tell me how you feel.
Right. Tell you what, positional sound is amazing.
Yep.
Like, it especially on drugs, but no matter what.
Yeah.
But especially on drugs.
Yeah. And in particular, track 5 of this album actually has warnings, and we've been reading these liner notes all day and reading these warnings that it plays with very high and very low frequencies. So, like, disc 3 has, like, you know, whatever it is, like 20 megahertz, and then disc 4 has like 2000 megahertz or whatever. So it's just these like really fucking crazy frequencies. The track's only like 2 minutes long because you can't really tolerate it. It sort of like starts fucking with your brain a little bit. Right. And like I personally like sensory overload, so I was enjoying the shit out of it. Like, I like staring into strobe lights. I like things like that. Some people will not like this track at all, and they even tell you in the liner notes, like, skip this. If you don't like it, just skip it. You don't have to do this one. We just are doing this thing. They also tell you, clear warning, like, do not listen to this while driving. Do not listen to this if you're pregnant. Like, if you feel lightheaded or nauseous, turn it off. Right. Like, so there's all these warnings, right?
But I love that about sound. That
I do too.
Like, it's a physiological thing.
Yep, totally. And so, like, we just embraced it all day, and we we're just like, whatever, dude. Like, every time that track would roll, we'd all just sort of like cringe and like, oh, like, this is fucked up, right? Like,
it's the fuck jam on
like,
steroids.
Yeah, like, what's it doing to our heads?
Right.
You know? So we loved it, but and so that's why I attribute that to what happened next. So sun goes down. I'm actually coming down off these shrooms. I'm like back in my body. I can form coherent sentences again. Like, I'm feeling really good.
Fucking dope.
Yeah. We're talking about the album and the experience, and Brett had someone had called over some other friends, like some other people had come over, and they were out in the driveway, and I got up to go and like talk to them and see like who they were, and I did that, and then as I'm standing there, I got like really lightheaded and nauseous. I was like, shit, man, like, I think I might have to like go puke or something. And I'm like walking back through the garage, and I remember reaching for the doorknob to go into the house, and then just like everything went dark, and then I woke up on the ground with everyone standing over me, and Joel, whose house it was on the phone with 911.
Oh, Jesus, dude.
Yep. And so I had passed out. I had like reached for that door and just fainted onto the garage floor and hit my head on the concrete.
Of course you hit your head, yeah.
Yeah. Not hard, I wasn't bleeding, but I hit my head for sure. And I come to, and I'm looking around, and everyone's like, "Oh shit, dude! Like he's okay." And like, and Joel's on the. I can hear Joel on the phone of like, he hit his head. Like I think like, oh he's awake. He's talking, and I was like, fucking call it off, dude. Like, paramedics do not need to come. Like I am fine,
right?
You know. And I couldn't even believe he called 911 because we are all tripping.
Oh
but it's
God.
his house, so he's probably like freaking out.
Yeah, but you have a pulse.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and then he's on the phone and he's like, "Oh, yep, like looks like he's good. You guys don't need to come. Like everything's fine." And then he like hangs up the phone, and like everyone helps me to my feet, and I like get to the couch, and like 2 seconds later, phew, like
yeah,
the
exactly.
fucking 2 ambulances and a fire truck roll in, dude. They're there, like.
Wow, 2 ambulances and a fire
maybe it was 1
truck?
ambulance. Like it was a bunch of fucking lights though, dude.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, oh no, dude, like I'm in so much trouble. Like everyone's in so much trouble, right? And so everyone's like freaking out and like stashing the weed and fucking everything. The fucking paramedics roll up and like come and talk to me, and they're like, "Hey, so what's going on, man?" And I was like, "Oh, you know, like I think I just got lightheaded and fucking, you know." And they're like, You want anything? Like they knew immediately. You're like, we're all hippies, right?
Of course.
They're like, you want anything? It's like, nah. And they're like, yeah, okay. Like we're gonna check you out. And they like shine lights in my eyes and like fucking take my pulse and my blood pressure and all that stuff. And they're like, okay, like you're fine. You hit your head, so you probably have a concussion. So here's the deal. Like, you need to be under medical care because you have to stay awake all night.
That's bullshit, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah. Current medical data suggests that letting someone naturally sleep like they want to do with a head injury is actually really good for you. And
all right, well, it was fucking...
the whole keep someone awake thing is actually probably damaging.
Well, it was the late 90s, and they were like, yeah, don't go to bed because you probably have a concussion. And then, you know, and they're just like... kind of like shaking their head, kind of being dicks about it. And but here's the thing, so I was under 18. They're like, we have to take you home. I was like, oh, my mom's out of town, like that's not gonna work. Which she actually was,
right? We've discussed this.
Yeah. And so they were like, okay, well, then we have to take you to the hospital. And I was like,
God damn it.
I was like, oh no, that's not going to work. And luckily Mel chimes in. Mel was the only person over... Well, no, she wasn't the only person over 18, but she had a car.
Right.
And she was over 18. And she's like, I can take him home. And they were like, are you over 18? And she was like, yeah. And they were like, okay, then we have to legally assign him to you as his guardian.
Tight.
And you have to take him directly home. And she was like, okay, done. And so she stepped up. I had never met this. I had met her once before. And she was just like, okay. And so then they like sign all this paper. And they're like, you got to sign here, here, and here. If anything happens to him, like it's your ass. And she was like, okay.
Yeah, she's like, it's cool because he's not going anywhere. So.
Yeah, totally. And so fucking, and they were like, and he needs to go home like right now. And she was like, okay, I get it.
10-4, good buddy.
Yeah, and so then they fucking pack up and they look at me and they're like, hey man, next time don't take too many bong rips and stand up too quickly.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I'm just like, okay, cool. And so then, they left, and then we all kind of laughed about it, and then Mel drove me home. And
wow.
because because I was like, I'm fine, and she was like, no, I'm taking you home. She's like, I don't know what I'm getting into tonight, and currently you're signed to me, so like,
you know what, you did just black out and hit your head on the floor.
Yeah,
like
totally.
Sending you home is.
Yeah, no, and I was feeling it too. I was like,
option.
like I've kind of had a weird day, so I've sort of like sort of left my body, sort of like tripped harder than I've ever tripped, like, yeah, I'm fine with going home.
Well, at that point, how hard were you even tripping? Like,
at that point, not very, but still, like,
well, of course, you're still like
still had the remnants,
some transmissions, but
still had the remnants. So so she drove me home, and then I get home, and I don't know how she knew, but my mom's wife, Susan, who I hated, and we'll get into Susan eventually, not my mom's current wife. Laura is cool.
Laura's the shit.
Yeah, very much like Laura. She's did not like Susan. And my mom was out of town, and Mel drops me off. I think it was because I was home later than I was supposed to be anyway, or maybe they call... I don't remember. But I get home, and she's fucking pissed. And she's like, what were you up to? Were you doing heroin? I was like, no, settle down.
Jesus Christ.
And I was just like...
Give me the benefit of the doubt. I was doing way cooler drugs.
Yeah, and I didn't even tell her. I was just like, no, I just smoked weed and, like, didn't drink enough water. And she was like, okay. And I was like, yeah, and I need to stay up all night because, like, I have a concussion. And she was like, fine. And I was like, so I'm going to go watch fucking Aeon Flux. And like,
yeah, you did.
So I watched,
yeah, you did.
So I watched fucking late night MTV because in the late 90s it was badass. It was Aeon Flux and Amp and the Max and fucking all that shit. So this is what told me that this was the path to go down, because then I experienced something even further reaching than that first trip. It's like I went beyond just seeing things that didn't seem real or having weird thoughts. Like I left my body, you know. I also experienced like a sonic masterpiece in multiple different ways, and started to really like, and that really started to shape who I wanted to be at that point. Like when you start unplugging the patch cords and resetting them again, it was like, okay, music is my calling. Like if this is what people are doing in the music world right now, I want to do this. I want to be a part of this. I want to figure this out. So that was huge. That was so formative for me to have just that crazy intense trip with such an insane musical experience.
Yeah, man.
And this is beyond like the, you know, I don't know, like I think about like kids in the 70s or whatever, like,
well,
coming home with like Dark Side for the first time or The Wall for the first time and tripping, and I'm sure that was fucking mind blowing too. So it was just like, this was just off the hook.
Absolutely. Well, and like, you know, now that we've mentioned it, like, did you ever try Dark Side and Wizard of Oz?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so, you know, clearly that's garbage. But
it is, but it's also like there are uncanny parts.
There's synchronicities.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever try Echoes Part 1 and 2? And the fucking synth sequence in 2001.
No, I never did.
So there was this big rumor going around for a long time, and I don't remember...
Actually, you know what? We did.
If it's been disproven or not, but yeah, like there's been suggestions that Echoes was originally written for 2001. And I don't remember if it's been disproven or not. I want to say that it has been disproven.
It feels like the timeline doesn't line up right.
And that I believe was what caused people to question it initially. But it is astonishing how well it matches up.
Well, we definitely speculated at one point that like there was no good reason that Floyd couldn't have just thrown Wizard of Oz on the background and just like jammed to it and like found like synchronicities. Why anyone would do that, I don't know, but like
but with Echoes, it's to the point where like, you know, where it like flips into the jam.
Yeah.
That's when the visuals kick in.
It's just perfect.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, I have no idea. I know that like we did a number of those, and actually I do believe we did that one. But I think there was one other one in some other movie. I don't remember. There were a few of those going around. But at a certain point, we just sort of decided that it was bullshit, and then it was just synchronicity, and it was just kind of the way things aligned. And I remember back when we lived in Sane, we would just get super high, and we would there was this TV station called Scola, and it was just international television, and the programming was all over the place. So sometimes it would be like Romanian news, and sometimes it would be like Japanese fucking like dance ballet, and sometimes it would be fucking anything. It could have been anything. And so we would just put on any album and turn on Scola.
Nice.
And sometimes it worked. And sometimes it worked exceptionally. Like, I do remember this one time that there was like a Russian ballet, and we were listening, and we were playing like a Blur album, and they were fucking dancing to Blur. Like, every single fucking move they made were like hitting the beats, and we were like, this is uncanny. Like, nice. This is just unbelievable.
That's awesome.
And then sometimes it wouldn't, and so it was what it was. But like, we just had so much fun doing that sometimes. Just like, let's put this on. Let's see if it syncs up.
Right.
Because sometimes it does, and sometimes it would half do it, where it's like, it'd do it for a minute, and we're just like, oh shit, like they all moved to the beat for a minute, and then like it would fall apart or whatever. But
hell yeah.
Yeah, that shit. Shit's so interesting, man. The way things can just fall in line with each other.
Did you ever encounter an electronic group called Emergency Broadcast Network? This is back in the 90s. They had a hit that was called Electronic Behavior Control System. And it was all clips from the news that had been synced with music. So, like, it was like this sick fucking techno beat with like talking heads going electronic behavior control system.
Oh, you're not thinking of Evolution Control Committee, are you?
No, it's Emergency Broadcast Network.
Huh.
And a song called Electronic Behavior Control System.
Okay. Somehow I didn't, because we were very into like Negative Land and all of that stuff.
And it is right there with Negative Land.
So somehow I am not familiar.
Oh, dude, one of these fucking days we're gonna like, because it's all still out there.
Yeah, I imagine it is.
But they were like just barely pre-internet. Like they fucking made a CD-ROM album. Like, you could play their album in a fucking regular CD player, but if you put it in a computer, they had fucking videos.
Yeah.
They had a proto website.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the World Wide Web didn't actually exist at this time.
Totally. Dude, there's a Canadian band called I Mother Earth. They had some big 90s hits. And I bought their album and brought it home to my dad and was like, it says there's an interactive CD-ROM. And we were blown away. We like plugged it in the computer, and they had like videos and little things you could click on. And we were just like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. They had another song that was like Aladdin Sane, and it was like actually a mental hospital patient talking about like the genie and like all this fucking. It was.
Yeah, that's cool.
Dude, it was intense, but like the amount of time that they had to spend like taking clips off of the news and like syncing those with like. They were doing all of the work before anyone had made the software. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like, anyway, I don't know how we got off on this fucking tangent.
Oh no, I mean just
it was so good.
Yeah, just revolutionary.
Oh, we were talking about syncing music,
media and stuff.
With media,
yeah. I mean, Zyrika and all of that stuff was just
like, holy shit, man! Like,
these actually, guys... it's cool that we bring up Negative Land because, like,
oh yeah, Negative Land was the shit, and the only reason that they didn't continue doing rad shit was they decided to name one of their albums U2 after a spy plane, and they got sued out of existence.
Yeah, but then they sampled the shit out of U2, and then they won all those lawsuits. And then they put out Dyspepsy, which was an entire album of Pepsi and Coke samples, also got sued, also won. So back in the fair use trials, so like way back when all the like parental advisory stuff, the Tipper Gore stuff, where they were trying to like sue Judas Priest and stuff. Right. Negative Land was actually tied into all of that because they were punting for fair use on stuff too, and saying like, you can't sue people for the music that they produce. Also, you can't sue them for like what may or may not be contained in that music. Like, just because you spin a record backwards and think it says Hail Satan doesn't mean that that's what's actually happening.
So I didn't think that they actually won their court cases.
They did. Absolutely they did.
I could swear to God that I read the wiki
because they're the biggest proponents for fair use. In fact, after the U2 album and the Dyspepsy album, they put out an album called Fair Use that was just like all about, and it was all clips from that stuff.
All right.
Negative Land also got in trouble for because a kid killed his parents after supposedly listening to Christianity is Stupid. That actually isn't true, but the media ran with it. And Negative Land made an album called Helter Stupid and took all the news clips from all the news reporting that Negative Land was responsible for this kid killing his parents and made a whole album about it.
Wow.
Like, Negative Land has always fucking gotten away with their shit.
All right. So clearly I stopped listening after, like, the album with fucking Sycamore opened on it. But,
Sycamore? Yeah, fucking no.
That's how Sycamore is.
I'm a big Negative Land fan. I've followed them through their whole existence, pretty much. I've listened to almost all the Over the Edges and like
saying Black, Yellow, and Rectangular.
Yeah, dude, totally. Actually, I have Helter Stupid on vinyl. Yeah, fucking cool shit. But also like a cutting edge band that took soundscape to a different level. You know?
And like they not only had really good fucking music, but they were playing with really high concepts, like fucking with copyright and fucking with intellectual property.
Well, so they are. So Negative Land doesn't get enough credit, but they're instrumental in developing or like fighting for fair use laws, so that people could sample, so that all the hip hop, all the DJs. All of them owe everything to Negative Land.
Right.
Everything that they did in court to fight for fair use. To say, you can sample these bits, and if you're creating a new thing, it's just a sample. You're just taking a thing and using it.
Fucking A, man. I mean, it's like the whole happy fucking birthday thing. Like...
Right.
God fucking damn it.
But yeah, totally. I'll have to fact check myself. I'm almost sure they won all of the lawsuits, because you can listen to U2, Dyspepsy, and fucking Helter Stupid on Spotify. So like,
rad.
If they didn't win those lawsuits, I don't see how those things would exist in the world anymore. So
maybe it was just that I was trying to pirate their music and couldn't find it anywhere because it's already like available.
Oh, and
on plenty of open source sites.
Well, and people worked hard to quash a lot of that stuff. You know, U2 was not happy. Pepsi was not happy. Like,
right? Yeah,
they did some pretty provocative stuff.
I was just trying to pirate the album that had like. Fucking
Escape from Noise is
Escape from Noise.
there.
Yeah, I was just trying to find Escape from Noise, and it was actually really hard.
Really? Well, I have a copy. I'll hook you up.
Sick.
Hell yeah. All right, man. We've gone super long in the tooth, so until next time, part 2 coming up.
Beware.